Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes. The heat's really starting to get to Porky today. He's already been stuck on the tube for quite a long time and is now looking for new ways to cool down. So if you've got any suggestions, please do let us know. Nevertheless, bravely, he will be delivering another sparking edition of Porkyvision, the best TV review this side of the Sahara. We're not quite sure what he's been watching, but you can be assured that he will have a very good opinion on it. Meanwhile, we'll find out how Apple managed to screw up the release of the new iPhone 7 and how one cafe owner is using negative reviews on TripAdvisor to sell his wares. Very successfully. All that, plus the usual quality journalism. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Now, it may not be the case all over the country, but London is certainly still sweltering, Mr. Parry.
It's terrible.
And we arrive here in various states of disrepair, depending on the public transportation method that we use.
Well, it's absolutely dreadful. I mean, we've actually had quite a busy day. We had a job we had to do this morning, which meant coming in and out of London and that kind of stuff. Now, we did again this evening.
Well, not coming in and out of London in my case, because I'm already in London.
Yeah, okay. Well, I
just have to move along in London.
Yeah, exactly, that's right. But anyway, the point I'm making is that the weather's remarkable. This morning when I got up, it was grey and overcast. You know, this is about 5:30.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe it won't be too hot today, but it was terribly muggy. The humidity factor was high. Round about sort of 2 o'clock, as I was finishing on the job we did this morning and starting to think about the job we're doing now.
Yes.
It changed from being overcast and dark and
blazing
muggy
sunshine
to blazing sunshine and hot heat generated by the sun.
Absolutely.
It's quite ridiculous. But anyway, look.
But anyway, I want to say good evening to you first of all.
Well, good evening. Good evening.
And welcome.
Thank you for the introduction and welcome to you. And the point is that as only 1/3 of my heart works, you have no idea how I have to battle through a day like today. Breathing problems. Yeah. Energy problems,
pollution,
low levels,
smog,
low levels of stamina.
Yes,
because it eats away at you.
So how do you keep yourself cool? What have you been doing?
Well, it's almost impossible. And the other thing is, 2 showers today. One this morning when I got up, and then one this afternoon before I came out to rendezvous here.
Yes.
And on each
think of the water bills.
Exactly, yeah. And also the water bill for watering the roof garden as well. Yeah. But the point of my story is that
what is the point?
Well, I haven't been dry all day. Because when you come out of the shower...
too much information. People don't want to know that.
When you come out of the shower...
They don't want to know about how soggy you get.
And your head is all wet and your hair is wet, then you try to get outside, and the problem is you're walking out of the steam room, so to speak, you know, where you have a shower.
Why don't you have a cold shower?
I do have a cold shower.
Well, how do you get hot doing that?
You don't. You get wet.
Oh, right.
I'm not saying hot. You get wet.
Okay.
And then it lingers in your hair, and as soon as you get outside and the humidity hits you, you get wet all over again.
Have you got a fan in the penthouse?
Yes, I have.
Well, when you put the fan on when you're wet, that should cool you down, shouldn't it?
No, because all that does is just swap air around.
No, that's how air conditioning works.
No. It's the fan thing is abrasive. It's noisy and it's ineffectual, as far as I'm concerned.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, there we go.
Yeah, very, very well indeed. Now, before we go any further, I've got a couple of questions for you. I've got lots of Facebook notes that I need to read out later on as well, congratulatory and otherwise. But first of all, from Richard, any news on Porky's ticket on the M25?
Right.
It did happen, didn't it? Honest to God. Now, he's shown a picture of the M25 with the X's because you told us this story some weeks ago.
That's right.
How a police officer had drawn level with you because you had failed to do what the highway code suggested, which
to move from the lane where the red X's were into the inside lane, which was full of traffic, and I couldn't, full of cars.
And he threatened that you were going to receive a ticket in the post.
Well,
so have you had it?
No, but do you know what I think happened? If you remember, we had a Sunday show that day. That's why I was driving back that early. We'd done a show in Rugby the night before.
Oh, yeah.
And I said that, in my opinion, it was a gross injustice, and that if I received any form of ticket, I would plead not guilty. I would also take the police authorities and the highway authorities who run the motorways to court and countersue any insinuation that I was a bad motorist. I think somebody was listening.
Oh, yeah.
I think somebody was listening.
They've gone running scared away from you?
Well, I haven't had a ticket for it, and, that maybe the proof is in the pudding.
Maybe so. Or maybe they were just trying to frighten you and making sure that you would never do it again.
I think that cop did that a few times. I think he's one of these cops who just like to see the fear in your face. Yeah. We don't see fear in my face,
No
you
fear.
didn't see fear in my face when I was doing the Cinnamon Challenge, which has had now 25 million hits, I'm told, today.
That's ridiculous, isn't
I know,
it?
25 million. And you won't see fear in my face when a copper tries to turn me over on an issue of which I am incapable of doing anything about.
Did you ever have fear in your face when you were working with Graham Kelly?
No, just...
He wasn't a very frightening boss, really, was he?
No, I either had, funniness in my face.
Yeah.
No, not funny, laughter in my face, or
complete and utter disdain,
or a sense of pathos. I suppose. You know,
I don't know whether this is a new book.
Right.
But,
okay.
James has sent us a tweet to say, I wonder if Mr. Parry pops up in this book. Is that a new book, Sweet FA?
No, he wrote that when
fascinating insight into football's corridors of power by Graham Kelly.
Yeah, Graham wrote that when he got excuse me, he got booted out of he walked out the FA,
corridors of
actually.
power.
What happened was there was a massive disagreement about I think it was the nomination of who was going to come from the 4 home nations countries, England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, to represent UEFA.
I know what the 4 nations are.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean, to represent who?
To represent, to a nominee on the UEFA committee.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And there was a big row about it, and Graham, thought that England, obviously, with a majority of footballers and that kind of stuff, so he left. Now,
because who got the place then?
It was undecided, but he wasn't getting enough backing from the FA Council to insist that the English candidate should get it. You see what I mean? Or something like that.
But after all the stories of skullduggery and sort of interpersonal rivalry and drug taking and money laundering and all that you had given to the press.
That's right.
In your position as communications chief.
That's right.
Of the FA.
Yes.
He was pretty much under fire anyway, wasn't he?
No, not really, because I believed in glasnost and all this, and I said, "Don't worry, Graham, I'll support you." It ended up with him losing his job, but that's not my fault.
So you got him the sack, basically.
Well, I don't think so.
I think you probably did.
But he wrote,
Are you in the book?
I've never read it. I've got 2 copies of it, one of which is signed by Graham.
No.
And
well, you must be in the index or something.
I suppose I must be, actually, yeah. But anyway, so he writes this book, right? And the true story about it is, and a ghostwriter wrote it, the Sun bought it, and then a friend of mine at the Sun rang me up and said, "Where does Graham Kelly live, and how do I get hold of him?" And I said, "Well," I said, "well, we bought the book."
Right.
I said, "Right, okay. You pay a lot for it." He said, "Yeah, for some unknown reason, some idiot commissioner, we paid him 60 grand. I said, "Right, well, that's all right." And he said, "No, we've just read the book." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "There's not one decent story in it."
Right.
So they had to go and re-interview Graham Kelly.
Right.
And then when they did the serialisation over 4 days, there wasn't a single story they put in the serialisation that was in the book.
No, really?
They just had to go and re-interview him and get some decent stories out of him,
And did they? Probably not.
Oh, yeah, they did, yeah. They got some decent stories then, but the ones that he hadn't been asked to talk about when he's writing the book. Funny stories, drunken stories, stories of massive rows in the FA Council, late-night banquets in Rio de Janeiro that went wrong and all that. None of that was in the book.
Right.
So the book bombed, but the serialisation...
The serialisation did all right.
Did all right, yeah.
Well, maybe I'll ask James to have a look and see if there's any mention of you in it.
Yeah, good idea. Why James? Who's James?
Well, James is the guy that's tweeted me the book cover.
I see, right, okay.
He's the guy that alerted me to it, you see.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware of it. And our friend John McEntee, I hear, has been given a bit of a dodgy book review
I tell you
by
what.
The Spectator.
Honestly, I mean, John was in here, and he's a great old Fleet Street colleague.
Great
right?
raconteur. But I'm starting to be a bit worried, though, because after he came in here, and he was very nice, and we had a lovely time with him, and he told a few funny stories, and we talked about a few characters that we knew. And he said, "Well, let's all go out for a drink." Ever since then, you seem to have been a one-man crusade to kind of belittle him.
No,
well, you told us yesterday about how you would have fired him if you'd known about the Tommy Cooper widow story.
Exactly, yeah, which he didn't report back to us. But listen to this one here.
Well, who's written this review for The Spectator?
This is in The Spectator, and it's written by a chap called Lewis Jones.
Okay.
I've no idea
I don't know who that is.
But anyway, he says...
He may have an axe to grind, though, mate.
Well, he may have an axe to grind. I don't know. Maybe John McEntee knows him. But if John's listening, and I know he is a listener to our esteemed radio station...
Yes.
He will already have read it. Somebody will rung him up and said, "Have you seen this in The Spectator?" Anyway, it says, John McEntee, the self-appointed chancer from Cavan, that's the place in Ireland where he grew up, has enjoyed long careers of gossip columnist on various national newspapers. Gossip is thirsty work, and in his anecdotes he comprises the bulk of his memoirs. He's almost invariably well refreshed. That can be dangerous. He recalls, for example, now this is where it starts, and you and I will know the characters in this. He says, he recalls, for example, attempting to introduce himself to Eve Pollard, who was then editor of the Sunday Mirror in the bar of the Grand Hotel at the 1989 Labour Party conference in Brighton. Yeah. I know that scenario so well, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you know what I mean? It's at the party conference, right? Pollard was talking at the time to Bruce Anderson. And Bruce Anderson
Brute Anderson, as used to be known.
He's known as the Brute of Fleet Street because he's such a
very large man as well.
Huge man who drinks copious amounts of alcohol, often falls over, sometimes can't remember which party conference he's at, and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Right. So anyway, Bruce Anderson said, "Why don't you F off, Potato Head?" Right? This is the account of John McEntee. Okay. McEntee responded by taking off Anderson's spectacles and throwing them across the room. So Anderson took a blind swing at him, which landed on Eve Pollard's bosom.
Oops.
This woke up Anthony Bevins, the political editor of The Independent, who threw a punch at Anderson, missed, and also managed to punch Eve Pollard in the bosom. There began a melee involving Keith Waterhouse and a drunken Alistair Campbell. Yeah. Alistair Campbell used to drink in those days.
Drink a lot in those days,
who had until then been playing the bagpipes. Now, what the reviewer of this book, Lewis Jones, says is... he says, when McEntee later wrote about the incident in the Oldie magazine, he says, I didn't. Bruce the Brute. The Brute says I didn't call him Potato Head. I called him the Famine Dodger, which is another Irish expression.
It's not very nice.
Derogatory. It's right. This is a helpful clarification, but the story, though not even funny, is still not altogether convincing. Nor are many of his other stories, most of which are not remotely funny. Why did he tell a story about getting into a wheelchair to meet the Pope as a disabled person? Why did he then tell us he had 6 pints of Guinness in his bladder, so he had to turn round? He said none of it's funny, none of it's worth a dot, and he says at the end, he says it contains factual errors too tedious to mention. Other than that, shockingly, for such a dedicated drinker, he thinks that Chateauneuf de Pape is a claret. It is not. And to price this mucky Faraggio at £18.99 is frankly outrageous. Who on earth would buy it? Relentlessly unedifying rubbish. How about that?
That's not very nice, is it?
No.
Well, I think this Lewis Jones must have some kind of axe to grind. We may have to go into his antecedents to find out why that is. Anyway, we've got lots of other things to talk about, including the launch of the iPhone 7, which has already been hit by various snags and embarrassing gaffes. We'll find out whether there's any point in getting one. And also, we'll be talking about Clement Attlee a little bit later on.
Certainly
the founder of the modern Labour Party, you might say. Lots more to come as well, including Porkyvision. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, in the morning, no doubt. Josh White's coming up very shortly. He's watching the unveiling of the new Apple iPhone 7. A couple of tweets to read out to you, though. Tim says, we need a Mike Parry, Graham Kelly impression, please.
Yes.
After all that conversation about Graham Kelly.
That's coming up.
Maybe you can read out one of the tweets in that. And Paul has got a picture of Harry Enfield with loads of money.
Oh, yeah.
He says, Porky should keep cool by fanning himself with some of his money.
Well,
loads of money.
Loads of money.
A bit like poor old Mr. Ashley.
See, must I say, and I thought he was going through an airport. You know, I thought I'd caught him going there. He wasn't. He was going through the security gates of his own company.
Yes.
And said, I'm man of the people.
They need to have one of those in case somebody wants to kill him.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. He said, I'm man of the people. Well, you empty out your pockets, sir.
Yeah.
So, what's all this, you know? I've got
a
more
big wedge of £50
notes.
notes.
They're just getting more and more out, you know, so that's it. But as for Graham Kelly, it was always on Monday morning, Now, Michael, we've got a bit of a problem here. What's that, Mr. Kelly? Well, have you seen all the newspapers on it? Of course I have, Mr. Kelly. I read them at 4:30am. And you'll see that they're full of stories about Paul Mason sticking cocaine up his nose and Bruce Grobbelaar's been accused of throwing football matches and everybody's saying Terry Venables is a crook, which he isn't, of course. Where are all these stories coming from? Oh, I don't know, Mr. Kelly, but I tell you what, I'm on the case. Well, I would like you to organise an immediate investigation into the leak, because we can't have these sort of things getting outside this building, can we? No, Mr. Kelly, we can't.
Incredible that he never knew that you were leaking the stories.
Well, the previous Friday, I'd been, with a load of Fleet Street mates in the hotel round the corner bar, getting lassoed till 2 in the morning, and although I can't remember everything about it, of course I told them all the stories because I believe in openness and glasnost.
Of course you do, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of people have sent some very nice messages on Facebook, which we haven't always read out, so I just want to read a couple of them out to you before I forget.
Excellent.
And this one's from Matthew, who says, could you please give a mention to two of our friends, Alfie and Tommy, who are walking from London to Ellesmere Port. Wow. They're trying to raise money for charity for a young mother who's been diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Oh, that's terrible.
So they're doing a tremendous thing. I mean, I can't be nice walking in this heat, but they're walking from London to Ellesmere Port.
Fantastic.
Trying to raise about £5,000. So all the best to you guys.
I'll tell you what, when you know Ellesmere Port at the end of it, not a huge incentive. I'm only joking, Ellesmere Port. I love you.
Yes, absolutely right. Now, there is something, let's see, where are we here? There's another one which I'm about to find for you so that I can
of course you'll find it. You're on top of the...
read it out to you,
You're on top of the technology.
This one's from Paul Johnson, right? And this one is about his son. He says he never misses a podcast. He's an avid listener. He's seen us twice in Birmingham and planned to see us in Edinburgh as well. But his son, unfortunately, was taken ill, culminating in an operation. He's now recovering in hospital, and it would really put a smile on his face if you could send him get well soon messages via the podcast. His name is Aaron Johnson. He's only 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's in Heartlands Hospital in Birmingham.
Right.
And he says it'll be fantastic if we can give him a mention. He'll be very, very thrilled.
Well, of course we can, Aaron. I hope you get better very, very soon, my boy. I'm sorry to hear that you've ended up in the hospital bed, but we've got the best health service in the world. They'll get you better soon, and you'll be back at your dad's side listening to the radio with him very shortly.
Absolutely right. Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much indeed. So, as far as the show goes tonight, you've got your Porkyvision thing all in mind. You know exactly what you're doing. doing there. You know precisely what programmes you're going to be looking at, because when I got home last night, once again, I thought to myself, I don't know what I'm going to find to watch, because there's a bit of slim pickings. I wasn't sure if I wanted to watch that third episode of One of Us.
Funny enough, I've had a message from a couple of people tonight saying, thank God you guys are on this show, 7 to 10 tonight, because the offerings on TV are so pathetic.
But do you know what was on last night when I got home?
What?
Basic Instinct.
Oh, was it?
Which I haven't seen for years,
no,
right?
I haven't seen it for years
so long since I've seen it, I'd almost completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a bit, it was a bit weird to watch it after all these years. It's very old looking now.
Yeah.
Very sort of 80s.
Yeah, sure.
Michael Douglas and Sharon
I know
Stone.
what you mean.
And it was all a bit overacted.
Well,
you know what I mean?
When I first saw the first one, what's it called?
Basic Instinct.
No, what was the one about the bunny boiler?
Do you mean Fatal Attraction?
Fatal Attraction, yeah. What an impact that had in the 80s.
Was that before Basic
Yes,
Instinct?
it was, yeah.
But I can still watch Fatal Attraction and think this is a great film.
That's right, yeah.
But Basic Instinct is so stylised of its time
yes, it is.
that it's almost ridiculous.
It is.
You know?
Now, listen, when I came out to see you in Mallorca...
How could I forget?
And I have to say that I'm getting a lot of complimentary messages back from the dive into your swimming pool in Mallorca at your villa, you know.
What a lovely villa it was.
It was a beautiful villa. But listen, I said to you how difficult it was for me to get a hotel room.
Yeah.
And in fact, how difficult even it was to get a flight there and back. Couldn't get a business class seat and all this kind of
Shocking,
stuff, you know.
But you did meet somebody on the way home, though, didn't you?
I did, actually.
What's going on with that?
Well, I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
Later.
All right.
But anyway, the point of my story is...
Yeah, what is the point?
Is that I had to pay way over the odds just to get one hotel room for one night.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's going on here? And I thought, well, maybe...
But it was in quite a nice leafy part of Palma you stayed,
it was very nice, yeah. But what I'm saying is that I thought because of the Spanish recession of a few years ago, when the whole blinking thing collapsed and the Spanish economy was right.
But I think that was more like mainland Spain, though.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, but I thought, has this spread over to Mallorca? Anyway, it's completely the opposite, right? I've just seen a report in the last couple of days, and it says that people like you, because you went to Turkey, I think, last year.
Actually, yeah. Was it last year?
No,
we went to Mexico last year. 2 years ago,
yeah, 2 years ago. To Turkey. People now are not going to places like Egypt. They fear that Tunisia and Morocco might be active.
Right.
Turkey even, perhaps, because there was a revolution
people are still
recently.
going to Turkey, but I think their tourism is down by about 70%.
I think it is. But the point of the story is people are now turning back to what they first knew when they went on package holidays 30 or 40 years ago. They're going back to Spain.
Yeah.
And where best in Spain to go? Mallorca.
Yeah.
And it says that Mallorca now is so popular and so full. Holidaymakers shun Turkey and Tunisia at risk of IS attack.
Yeah.
67 million will head to Spain this year, a country that only has a population of 67 million.
Wow.
67 million to a country that's only got 47 million people. And furious locals say the influx in places like Palma, the capital of Mallorca, are ruining their cities.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that amazing?
I mean, the thing that I find interesting about all of that is that it depends on where you go as well. Because, like, the day, funnily enough, that you flew back out, it was my son's birthday. We went to a water park, and it was full of English people. But for the most part, where we were staying, and the place in the beaches we went to, you didn't see any English people at all.
No.
I mean, you see a lot of Germans, and you see quite a few Spanish people as well.
Yes.
But it wasn't that busy in the parts of the island where we were. You know?
No. Well, I mean, you were about, I would say, 30 miles due east of Palma.
Yeah, maybe 40, something like that.
But Arenal, which is the main resort, which is next to Palma, connected to Palma, it's literally spilling over. It says here, sweltering sunshine, clear blue skies, endless flow of tourists. It sounds like the perfect summer for a Spanish city where thousands of jobs rely on holidaymakers spending. But as the stream of British visitors to Mallorca's capital, Palma, rapidly turns into a flood, locals say the dream has become a nightmare with tourist-branded terrorists who have brought the city to its knees. A series of inflammatory slogans have been daubed over walls in the old town, including "Tourists go home,"
Really?
"Tourists, you are the terrorists."
Right.
Others included...
it's a bit ungrateful, isn't it?
I'd have thought so. "Tourists go home," written on the 4-star Palma Sultres Apartal. It's the fourth time the upmarket hotel has been vandalised within a few months. Last week, figures revealed that 15 million Brits will have visited Spain this year. Mallorca alone this year.
Right.
The rise in tourist numbers has been attributed to holidaymakers shunning nations where they fear terrorism could be prevalent.
Yes. Although, and as much as you can be understanding of that, in a way, it can pretty much happen anywhere. I mean, it happened in the south of France.
Yes.
It could happen in England. It could happen in Mallorca as well. I mean, fortunately, it hasn't, and let's hope it doesn't. But I mean, you can see why people wouldn't go to Turkey. And a lot of people also don't want to go to other parts of the sort of Mediterranean.
No, sure, yeah,
because of the problem of parts of Greece, for example, because of all the refugees who were coming over into Greece.
Yeah, that's right.
So
But like a lot of people in this country sometimes say, "Oh, our town centre's been taken over on a Friday and Saturday night by stag parties and all that." That's happening 24 hours a day in Parma.
Yeah.
They say it's becoming impossible to live there if you're a local.
Well, I suppose if you're a local, then you'd have to think about going somewhere else. But also, I met a guy here in London who works, funnily enough, at my hairdresser's. He said he's from Mallorca, and he said the reason he came to London was because there's no work. He said, unless you want to work in the tourist business, basically there isn't anything you can do there. So they don't want to cut off their noses to spite their faces.
60% of the economy of Spain and almost 80% of it in Mallorca is tourist-based.
Yes.
How about that?
Well, they certainly got quite a boost when we were there. That's
certainly
for sure.
did, yeah.
Mr. Chili Flake says this: why shouldn't Mike Ashley carry a wad of £50 notes? The man is a
agree.
billionaire.
I totally agree.
Well, I don't think either of us said he shouldn't do it. We just thought it was a bit unfortunate, given the fact that he was going into his company for a meeting about whether the company was being run appropriately.
Yes.
And the first thing everybody sees is him taking out wads of £50 notes.
Yeah, but he's a billionaire.
Well, of course, but you know how people are.
Yeah.
You know, the people who are on minimum wage, or that he wasn't paying even minimum wage to, are going to not look upon that kindly.
No.
So it's not a very smart PR move, is what I'm saying.
We do have one particular colleague here, don't we, who says you've always got to have your wedge with you.
That's true.
Where's your wedge?
Why are you giving away his accent?
Well, I'm not.
In that way.
Well, we've got lots of people who sound like that on this station.
That's true, very true. Yeah, absolutely right. Now, we've got loads more to do. Coming up, we'll be talking very soon to Josh White because, of course, he's watching the unveiling of the new iPhone 7. Coming up later in the programme, we're going to find out from one cafe owner how he's turning around some bad reviews. Ian Lee will be here after 10 o'clock. And, of course, tomorrow morning from 6 on the Paul Ross Full Set Breakfast, Paralympian medalist Ian Rose discusses the importance of the Games, and Dr. Dawn Harper is in as well to do the papers. Good evening. We are the two Mikes, of course. Mike Parry's here. I'm Mike Graham. We're both suffering slightly from the heat exhaustion scenario, but we're battling bravely on. And Porkyvision's coming up a little bit later on. Over in California, though, of course, they're unveiling the Apple iPhone 7.
Yes.
And Josh White, who's our technology reporter, has been watching events for us. There was a slightly embarrassing hiccup earlier on when they scheduled some tweets to go out to coincide with the launch.
Yes.
Right? But unfortunately, Mr. Cook, who is now in charge of Apple, managed to screw it up. Well, it wasn't maybe him that screwed it up, but somebody screwed it up, because basically what's happened is that the tweets went out early, so they revealed, unbeknownst to them, before they wanted to, that the Apple iPhone 7 is now waterproof and has got all sorts of other gizmos on it. Let's talk to Josh and get the full story for him. Josh, a very good evening to you.
Good evening. Yes, those tweets did go out early. I was just thinking one internship is possibly ending quite early.
Yes,
tomorrow.
Indeed. And I mean, the trouble with being Apple now, I suppose, aside from the fact that everybody's trying to take billions and billions and more pounds off you in tax, is that you keep unveiling things which aren't that much different from the last thing you unveiled.
No, they're not. They're not. And with the last few releases we've seen, especially with iPhones, it sort of adds a little bit, adds something you didn't think you need, and then when you get it, you don't actually need in the end anyway. Right. It's extracting more cash from you every year, isn't it?
Well, exactly right. Exactly, I mean, for example, you know, the new iPhone 6S, which has this rather bizarre aspect to it. So when you take a picture and then you look back at the picture, it looks like the picture moves. And you kind of go, well, that's quite cute, but you don't really need it, do you?
No, it's certainly not worth the several £100 excess you're paying for these products, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
No, that's absolutely right. Now, Josh, is any of this to do with the fact that Steve Jobs, sadly, is no longer with us? He was the genius who created, developed, and, you know, moved forward at Apple all the time. Is it any coincidence that he's gone and now it's all kind of screwed up?
I think it might be. We haven't seen anything truly revolutionary from Apple since Steve left. There hasn't been anything. We've had a watch, not really very useful, terrible battery life on it. We've had a couple of new iPhones. We've got the new iPhone today, just in the last 10, 20 minutes has been announced, and we've found that it's actually removing one of the most popular features on every single smartphone. There is no headphone jack on the new iPhone.
There's no what?
There's no place to plug in headphones.
What, you mean if you're sitting on the tube now and you want to play the Two Mics podcast, there's nowhere to stick your headphones in? That's ludicrous.
Well, there is. Of course, that's what you want to do. It's what a lot of people want to do with their phones.
Yeah.
You've spent £200 or £300 on an amazing set of Bose or Sennheiser or what have you headphones, but there's that round jack, that jack we've been familiar with since the Walkman days, is not there. Apple is saying you've got to use their new connector. But of course, if you've got old headphones, you can spend £20 on an adapter that you're going to lose next week and have to go back and spend another £20 on.
Yeah, I mean,
presumably they're giving you a new pair of headphones to go with them. Aren't they trying to promote sort of wireless headphones as well?
They have. I think they're called the Airbuds. They just announced it just before I came on to talk to you guys. The Airbuds, which are two wireless buds, which also sounds to me like something that can roll under the seat of a train very easily. I know how often my partner loses her earrings, and these aren't much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at some figures here. The low-spec handset for the 32GB version will be around about £600, but the highest spec iPhone 7 Plus with 256GB, almost £900. That's a lot of money for a phone.
That's a lot of money for something that you're going to want to upgrade in about 18 months.
Yeah.
Max, really. But we don't even spend that much on computers these days. Well, some people do, but you don't. Most people don't. It's a lot of money to drop on a phone. And the other problem we have with these Plus models from Apple and some of the Samsung ones have had this problem. This is the first version of the iPhone 7. In a year's time, we're going to get the 7S. That's how these things work. And with these new versions of the big phones, they're not constructed properly. We often see they bend, or in the case of the new Samsung Note, they catch fire.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of money to spend on something that's not guaranteed is going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get the feeling here, Josh, from what you've been telling us, all you've been telling us tonight, is that people are running out of ideas in the mobile telephone business, and whatever, quotes, improvements they're now putting in might turn out to be disimprovements. Why not leave well alone?
Well, that's the thing. And what most people want in a smartphone these days, they want a good-sized screen, but not too big because you want it to fit in your hand. They want 4G connectivity. They want to be able to make calls, send texts, and do a bit of the fun stuff, the Facebook, the YouTube, that sort of thing, but nothing too flash. And I had a colleague today, actually, his Samsung that's a few years old, broke down, and he thought, bugger it, new phone time, let's go out and get one. And he was looking at a few quite pricey models, and I actually pointed him towards some of the other brands that we're seeing, especially in the UK now from China. You've got your Huawei, your ZTE, and these are companies that are specializing in making quite good smartphones that take away these bells and whistles. They might only cost a couple of £100, but they do everything you need.
Exactly.
Now,
right.
Josh, we haven't got a lot more time, so I just want to ask you one quick question. I mean, is there as much excitement around each Apple unveiling, or is it sort of diminishing? Because in this country, certainly, and in other countries, the sale of iPhones is actually going down throughout the course of the last 12 months.
Well, I think the excitement in the general public is certainly diminishing because people do get sick of being told that they need to shell out nearly £1,000 every year for a new phone. Yeah. There's certainly a corner of society who are absolute, what we like to call fanboys of Apple, who will be foaming at the mouth for this announcement. But I think that excitement is diminishing because there's only so much new stuff we can take all the time, and all the companies are just throwing it at us, and we're just saying, look, stop, I can't afford this, and I can't comprehend it most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Josh, thanks very much indeed. Do get back in touch with us if something incredible happens. But I have to say, it sounds very much like every other Apple launch which is going on these days. Not terribly exciting, but very, very, very expensive.
Indeed.
And if you're daft enough to want to go and sleep outside one of the Apple stores to get one of these so that you can show it off to your mates,
I know,
then I feel terribly sorry for you.
Was Josh coming to us, by the way, from a tube station that was abandoned by everybody else except him?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of an echo there,
yeah,
wasn't
well,
there,
he was coming from what you might regard as a very, very high-tech area.
See.
You might have thought he might have had a very high-tech line.
Yeah,
but hey, you can't have these things.
But he could have been in a sealed area, you see, because he was party to some secret unveilings, announcements. Perhaps they wouldn't let him out.
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
Now, the happy campers are attempting to poke fun at me by saying, waxing lyrical Mike Graham about Basic Instinct being very 1980s. It was released in 1992. Leave reviews to Mike Parry in future, #Plank. Now, happy camper, if you knew anything about the movie world, you would know that a film released in 1992 would have been made actually in about 1989, and it would actually take post-production time before it was brought out.
No.
And the whole point of it being released,
a very slippery sort of excuse to get out of the faux pas
if
you've
you
just
want
made.
to have anyone look at that film and tell you that it is not about the 1980s, then you will be severely reprimanded by anyone with a brain, because it was made about the 1980s, and that's why it's a very 80s film.
Not a very credible explanation, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't remember you pointing out that it was released in 1992.
What?
I don't remember you pointing that out.
I didn't point it out.
Well, you didn't upbraid me for saying it was a film about the 80s.
I didn't feel I had to.
Oh, really?
I
didn't know, did you?
No, I didn't want to embarrass you. I didn't want to highlight
a couple of people are also
error that you made on air.
A couple of people are also questioning your figure of 15 million Britons travelling to Mallorca this year. I'm not sure that's right.
No, it's not. That's to Spain, right? A vast majority, a big proportion
you said it was
of
to Mallorca.
No,
Yeah, you did.
No, didn't.
Well, two people have pointed out that you got it wrong.
A big proportion of them going to Mallorca. Some of them are going to Spain via Mallorca. Mallorca or Mallorca via Spain, okay?
Rodney says this, whoa, back the wagon up, guys. Porky met someone on the flight home. Is it the first Mrs. Parry? I think we need to know.
Well, no, it's not a very interesting story. It is a very interesting story, actually, but
Well,
I think I've told it already.
All right, well, we may have to revisit it at some point later on.
Whatever.
Tim says, fantastic, Porky. Mike Yarwood, eat your heart out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That was
Was that
another one
Graham
from
Kelly?
the 80s.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, well, coming up in the next hour, we've got another guest coming on who's called Arlo Calderbank, right? He's the owner of Nook Neighbourhood Coffee in Stockport. This is a guy who's been using all the bad reviews on TripAdvisor.
Absolutely.
Have you ever been on TripAdvisor?
No.
Do you know what it is?
Yes, it's where you can actually put a positive or a negative on some form of service or some business you've been in. Hotels get it all the time. Somebody goes and stays at a hotel where a couple have been, battling away for 24 hours a day for 10 years to establish a little hotel somewhere, and then some pompous ass goes there, gets a bad breakfast or something.
Like
and
the
goes
man
on,
who should not be named. That kind of
yeah,
thing.
that's right. Goes on TripAdvisor and says the worst hotel I've ever stayed in and ruins their business.
Yeah.
I think it's an evil. I think it's an evil medium.
Well, it's not an evil medium.
I think it's pretty evil.
I mean, it's basically it's democratic internet again. Jeremy Corbyn was going on about democracy on the internet the other day. I mean, this is a place where anyone who happens to have access to the internet can go on and make a recommendation, or otherwise, if they don't like the service they got. And if you're looking to go somewhere, it's quite useful to have a look on it to see whether or not actually it's a place worth visiting.
But if there are two hotels on an island in the Outer Hebrides, and they're both battling to survive, with
are you
tourists
suggesting
and all that
might be some skullduggery going on?
Well, I'm suggesting that one of them could take a boat to the neighbouring island and say to his nephew, by the way, get onto TripAdvisor and get all your mates in your class at school to get onto TripAdvisor.
Well, why does he have to get in a boat to do that?
Well,
to just ring him up.
Well, just a bit of sort of spy type behaviour and activity.
Well, it'd
be
better if he didn't. If he wasn't seen in a boat going over there.
Well, you never know. And just say that this hotel is rubbish. That the breakfast was awful, the lunch was awful, that the bedrooms had creaky floorboards.
Yeah, but you're not usually using it to just look at one person's view.
That's what you can do. You can use it.
But if there's 10 views which are good and one that's bad, you would normally go with the good ones, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you see, normally what happens is that those sort of mediums are used by wicked, evil people. Good people.
That's not true.
Good people wouldn't touch them.
That's not true. I've written things on TripAdvisor before.
Have you? Like what?
Well, I was asked once by one of my local sort of businesses that I visit quite a lot down in Sussex. Would you mind writing a review of our place on TripAdvisor? I said I'd be delighted to.
Yes, and what sort of business was it?
I don't really want to tell you.
Well, come on, is it the butcher or is it the baker or
it was something like that?
Is it the candle maker?
The candlestick maker? No, it was something like that. It was a local kind of place that I go to quite a lot to buy things.
Okay.
But also where you could sit down.
Wasn't where you got your £54 bag of dog food, was it?
No, that was a main sort of chain. That was in London.
That was in London. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
No, but I mean the thing is that
Is it your wine supplier?
It wasn't my wine supplier. No.
So it's the butcher, isn't it?
No, it's not the butcher.
I bet
no.
it is.
What difference does it make who it is? Anyway, my point is I wrote a very glowing review of it, which was actually true.
Yeah, but you see, that can be counterproductive because people say, oh, he gets free meat. You see
I
what
don't
I mean?
get free anything.
That's what people will say.
Well, you would say that because you are by your very token. No, that's what the scandal is on Coronation Street.
Oh, yes, that's right. It was.
Which we were talking about. We'll talk about that later on.
But
no, I mean, only people like you who've got that sort of twisted view of the world would think that I was getting something for nothing. Because you don't do anything unless you get something for nothing, then you're nice to people.
Yeah, you think so?
Is that right?
Yeah. No, I don't think that's true at all. I think you'll find that I am probably the fairest person in the world. And then even if I get bad service, I don't go around slagging people off.
You're the fairest person in the world?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
When British Airways wouldn't let me upgrade to business, even though there were spare business class seats, this is getting back to Mallorca, okay? I didn't slag them off. I didn't say this is a badly run airline.
Why wouldn't they let you do it?
Well, because they said they didn't have the technology in Palmer Airport to upgrade me from what I already had, which is an economy seat, to a business class seat, even though I wanted to pay it.
They must have been lying.
Well, they honestly, the girls there locally were Spanish.
Yeah.
We do not have.
That's rubbish.
Honest to God, they said we do not have technology. I said.
Well, you're saying in Spain they don't have electronic technology.
That's what the girl told me about British Airways.
Absolute
they cannot
rubbish.
upgrade you in Mallorca to come back on a British Airways flight.
Absolute
I know.
nonsense.
I thought it was nonsense, but that's what they told me.
Jane says this: will Porkyvision include pole dark? # torso exposure.
Well, there might be a bit of that. I've seen a bit of pole dark.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll have to find out later. I'm afraid, Jane. Don't try and squeeze the information out of it at this point. Now, lots more to come. This is Two Mics. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later in the morning, I should think. And also, of course, it's Porkyvision coming up. We've got to work out what Porky quiz is going to be.
Yes.
Let's do that during the course of the show.
Yeah, we
I'm
will.
not asking you to come up with a subject
We
yet.
will, don't worry.
Lately, you've been accusing me of gerrymandering the actual
the subject itself.
Subject matter.
Yes,
where,
that's right,
where normally speaking, you would suggest a subject. So I'm quite happy for you to suggest a subject if you want.
Okay.
Now, we're talking about the Apple iPhone 7 a minute ago.
Yes, we were.
Have you seen this story that the NHS wants you to self-diagnose using your smartphone?
Yeah.
Which is not really very helpful if you've got one of those that blows up in your hand.
That's right. You get burnt hands.
Yeah.
Oh, ring them up. My hand is burnt.
My hand is
Why?
burnt.
Because my phone exploded in my hand.
I've just been self-diagnosing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
I just don't see the point of it.
How are you supposed to do it anyway?
Well, I saw somebody talking on TV earlier today saying that basically what we want to do is become a paperless NHS.
Yes, that's right.
We want to become paperless. Now, last time I heard that phrase was when David Montgomery came to the Mirror and decided to make it paperless.
That's right, yeah.
Despite the fact that it was a paper-producing company.
Yes, that's
that
right.
produced reams and reams of paper every single day.
Oh, we got this...
he said, right, no more paper. Anybody who had paper on the desk, they sent people around and just threw it all in the bin.
Yes, that's right, it's all in the bin. And we had this at the Express, of course, where, the paperless society now, so what they did is they said, we won't have any litter bins because there won't be any paper to throw in it. You see what I mean?
Exactly.
So they didn't have any litter bins in
and
the new
thought
building.
They would save a fortune on actually printing stuff out and all the rest of it.
It was so ridiculous. When you go in a conference, with your news list for the 4 o'clock conference, you can't take a computer in with you.
No.
Because they didn't have handheld laptops or any handheld tabs in.
No.
What are they called? Tablets, in those days.
Right.
So you had to print it off and take it in as paper.
Yeah.
And they also found...
It's a really stupid idea.
They also found that, if Mrs. Thatcher gives you a knighthood, as she did to Sir Nicholas Lloyd, our boss, you can't actually send her an email because they didn't exist in those days.
No.
You have to write on a bit of paper and say, thank you very much.
Right.
When is my peerage coming?
Although you do have to say, I suppose, that there are places where paper is overused. I mean, we probably use more paper in this office than we need to, considering
more than ever.
You don't actually need to print everything out.
More than ever. You walk through the office and in one day at this time, you see dozens and dozens of schedules from previous shows just lying around.
Yeah.
Because people do overproduce them in case somebody says, give me a schedule.
Well, you know what
like
the worst thing is, and this used to happen a lot late at night,
Yeah.
where you'd go to print something out, just a few minutes before the show starts, because things tend to be left to the last minute, and the printer doesn't work.
That's right,
And then you'd go, there's no paper in it. Oh, there's no paper in it. So what's some paper in it? And just as it then starts to print, it then prints about 1,000 pieces of paper that everybody else has sent to it.
The other problem, of course, is that in the old days, but I'm talking about maybe only 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
You used to be able to go up to a printer, lift the lid, put a paper on it, close the lid, press the print button, and it would print.
Yes.
Now,
they are a photocopier type thing.
That's a photocopier.
Yeah.
They are so complicated now. I often don't know how to get it to
work.
work.
There's one here where you have to use your company ID.
Absolutely.
In order to actually make it work.
But even then, on the enlarge or shrink.
Enlarge.
Or do you want it in colour? Do you want it in black and white?
Yeah.
How many copies do you want and all that? It's left me behind. It has left me behind, I'm afraid.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, many people are left behind, depending on, which stage of the evolutionary scale you're actually on.
They sure are. Now, listen, what is your attitude towards clowns?
Clowns?
Clowns. And for instance, you've got 2 boys, aged about 12 and 9.
Yeah.
When they were little and used to go to places like circuses and all that, did you notice how frightened children are of clowns?
Well, my daughter's frightened of clowns.
Emma?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You never give her name away.
Oh, everybody knows because she comes to live shows with us, so I think we know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, she's been frightened of clowns ever since she was a little girl and still is.
Right.
Finds them creepy.
Well,
and a lot of people do.
Well, I can explain this to you because in one of my medical journals,
Yeah.
I found out there is a common complaint called coulrophobia.
Oh, yeah.
And coulrophobia is the right medical term for fears of clowns.
Is that right?
It's very common.
Uh-huh.
It's not an outright pathological fear. You know, it's not like you think you're going to be killed or anything like that. But it gives you an uneasy feeling being in the presence of a clown, and the word most used is I feel they're creepy.
Yes.
Now, what it's down to, psychologists think it's partly because the behaviour of a clown can be transgressive. So transgressive means unpredictable and antisocial.
Okay.
So this is the custard pie flinging,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
This is pouring buckets of water over other clowns' heads.
Well, I suppose the origin of the clown is that the clown is actually a sad figure, isn't he?
Yes.
He's not actually somebody who's a slapstick clown.
Yes.
It's the old-fashioned kind of French
That's right.
The doll almost, which has actually got a sad face, not a happy face.
That's right. And having the flower in your buttonhole which squirts water in your face and all that,
that's more
right?
the slapstick clown, though. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, yeah. Now, the point is, the study of neurobiology, 'cause this came from a journal which specialises in neurobiology.
Really? What was it called?
Sorry?
What was it called?
It doesn't matter what it's called.
Neurobiology Weekly or something.
No, you idiot. It's a research paper on neurobiology,
right.
okay?
Well, people just like to know
Why
the
do you
names.
have to interfere all the time, asking me for stupid details?
Well, because people like to look these things up.
Neurobiology, okay, suggests that the reasons for our fear of clowns You're still laughing.
Yeah, sorry.
Goes much deeper.
Yeah.
Now, by exaggerating certain facial features and body parts, i.e. the red nose, the unnatural makeup...
Big shoes.
Exactly, the outside shoes,
Yeah.
the clown enters what we call the uncanny valley. Okay?
The uncanny valley?
The uncanny valley.
Is that near the happy valley?
No, you idiot. This is a psychological term, okay?
Where is the uncanny valley?
Well, I'm telling you.
Can you see it?
No. The uncanny valley is a fascinating phenomenon, and it was first identified by the brilliant robotics professor in Japan in 1970 called Masahiro Mori.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Mori. I wonder if that's Mori from any of the...
Mori Pole and all that.
Pole? Yeah,
I don't think so. But
no,
anyway.
right.
So, and it's used to describe the feeling people have when something appears human, but not quite human.
Really?
That's what it is. That's what neurobiology is all about, okay?
All right.
Well, that's what the uncanny valley is. The uncanny valley is looking at something, thinking, I think it's human, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And
You're not frightened of clowns, are you?
What?
Are you frightened of them? Clowns?
I find them unsettling.
Creepy,
Find them unsettling.
Yeah.
But anyway, so old Masahiro Mori, he came up with this, right? So while people feel comfortable towards things like robots, because the robot looks like a machine, anything that looks like a human but is not acting like you are a human, okay?
Yeah.
You feel very uncomfortable when you see something that looks a bit like what you think it is, but you're not sure it is.
Right.
Now, if you plot how comfortable they feel on a graph, because this is what Masahiro Mori
what you found out,
has done. He puts electrodes on people's body, right, and shows them a load of clowns. And if you plot how comfortable they feel on a graph, the sudden dip in the comfort levels is in the uncanny valley moment when the clown first steps onto the stage. You see what I mean?
Yes, I do.
And that's where the term gets its name.
Well, there is certainly something creepy about the facial aspects of a clown.
Yes.
I mean, I think it was Heat. You know that great movie that De Niro and
Yes.
Al Pacino are both in?
Yes.
Where it's a bank robbery, basically.
That's
but
right.
the bank robbers wear the clown faces.
That's right, yeah.
When they're robbing, I think, the first security truck
That's
and all
right,
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than seeing somebody, particularly somebody who you know is actually a bad guy.
That's right.
Malevolent.
Yeah.
Actually wearing a clown mask.
Well, do you remember the Bond film that starts with a clown trying to escape from a circus over a fence, being pursued by killers, and they eventually get him just within sight of the MI6 HQ?
No.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that
Well,
one.
the
one Live and Let Die, the New Orleans
Yes,
set one, had
yes.
the guy, the sort of the witch doctor guy wearing a sort of clown.
No, he was not a clown. He was a witch doctor. No, this one ends up with them on the circus train when Bond is wrestling with the gorilla in the cage and all that kind of stuff.
That's a really old one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a Simon Templar, so yeah.
By the way, Roger Moore?
Yeah, that's right, Roger Moore. By the way, I'll tell you something more about James Bond when we get round to speak to the James Bond expert later in the week.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, so just to explain, now, precisely why we have... Oh, right, that's right. Now, you know when we see aliens, right, the reason why we depict aliens as...
in films, you mean? Not like when we really see them.
No, because nobody's ever seen one.
Well, no, people have.
Well, they think that.
They think they have.
They've too much to drink. Or they've been smoking cannabis or something. But we depict aliens as people with big heads and bulging eyes, okay? Now, the reason we do this...
The greys.
is because they look a bit like us, but they're not the same. So we have to make them look not the same, okay?
Right.
Now, to move on...
Well, don't you think that that's because people have seen them and that's what they've seen?
No.
Well, what about the cave paintings in the Atacama
Desert?
Well,
they were just stick figures with a bubble around their head.
They didn't have the big eyes?
No, they didn't have big eyes,
okay.
no. I've seen them. I've been there. It's the Atacama Desert in Chile.
That's why I'm asking you about it.
Now then, what I'm going to say is, precisely why this phenomenon exists isn't clear, but it is thought that when we look at non-human faces, certain very specific parts of our brain process the information. But when we look at human faces, another entirely different but also very specific part of the brain is involved.
Yeah.
For faces that look a bit human but not quite human, the brain isn't sure how to process this.
Well, how does that work with monkeys then?
Well, the monkey's not a human.
Yeah, but they look almost human at times.
No, clowns are pretending to be human. You see what I mean? Like Homo sapiens. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So the faces look a bit human, but not quite. The brain isn't sure how to process this, and neither part knows which one should be involved. Now, if something doesn't quite move in the way we would expect, like a clown with big feet, this also sets alarm bells ringing in the brain, where normal fluid human movement is identified and accepted and processed, but a clown's silly walk, the silly clothes he wears, the silly nose he has, the silly hat he's wearing, compounds the problem and confuses the brain. So if you find yourself making excuses to avoid a trip to the circus, you're not uncommon.
No.
It's not unnatural.
No, I think a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I saw a report today about sex robots as well, or just general robotic developments. And I'm going to talk to you about that coming up in the next hour as well, because a lot of people have said, actually, they would have a relationship with a robot because they would see many, many human characteristics in it. So it's fascinating stuff.
I don't know where to go with that one.
Yeah, we'll have a think about it, because we're going to have a little stop for a moment to pause for breath. Lots more to come in the second hour of the show. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to Two Mikes. We're managing to keep Mr. Parry very, very well hydrated because he's not suffering the heat very, very well at all. We'll be talking some more about it coming up. If you've got any ideas to keep him cool, by the way, do let us know. You can email us through the website here. Porkyvision coming up a little bit later on as well. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. By the way, in case you haven't noticed that we've got a Facebook page as well, the Two Mikes can be found on Facebook, and that's where we put lots of information, all sorts of things like Porky's dive into my pool in Mallorca, lots of pictures from Edinburgh, that kind of thing, and also we'll tell you there where all our next shows are coming up. One coming up at the end of this month, 24th of September, in Whitley Bay, which you tell me is slightly east of Newcastle, when I thought it was slightly south of Newcastle. No,
Newcastle is up the Tyne.
Up on Tyne,
Yeah, and if you go down the Tyne towards the North Sea, you get to Tynemouth at the end, turn a left a little bit there, Whitley Bay's just up the road, literally 2 or 3 miles.
Had a tweet earlier from Laura, one of our fans that has been to a couple of the shows. She's going to be at the Whitley Bay show.
Lovely.
Said she was listening to an old podcast and heard you singing "Tell Laura I Love Her."
Oh yeah.
And said, I used to have people sing that to me all the time, and it doesn't happen much anymore. So I said maybe you'll serenade her at the Whitley Bay performance.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give her a quick rendition now.
Well, not now.
Tell Laura I love her.
No.
Tell Laura she's mine.
Tell Laura I miss her, isn't it? Or tell Laura I need her.
Tell Laura I miss her.
Yeah.
Tell Laura she's mine.
Yeah. Isn't that the thing?
I think some idiot switched my microphone off.
What, some idiot?
Yeah.
What, you mean the guy behind the glass? What, you mean Ed?
I'm not sure.
That must have been a mistake.
Anyway, now listen, I'll tell you what I'll talk to you about.
Yeah, go on.
In this modern age of texting...
You want to talk about robots?
Why?
Well, because I was just mentioning to you before the news that I saw this report on how they're now developing more and more kind of sophisticated robots for the house.
Yeah.
Some of which will be able to be kind of like your personal butler.
Robots are made of metal, right?
Not all of them.
Plastic.
No, you're not right about that.
Plastic or metal?
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that they're becoming so sophisticated. Right. They're working currently on one that we should be able to buy just as a matter of general course, which will do all the things around the house that, for example, your housekeeper does.
Yes.
And that tends to look a bit like a sort of Star Wars R2-D2 type robot.
Yes, okay.
But it can grip things, it can sweep
things. But all this idea about
clean things.
Robots will become your lovers and all that.
Well, there's also various companies working on that kind of thing.
Can we just concentrate on the physical activity of a human being trying to Rogerise a robot?
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Why?
Well, because it's
not if the robot is a perfect replica of a human being,
it's perverted.
Well, it might be perverted,
it's
but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Lots of things are perverted.
I should imagine it's physically damaging, painful.
Damaging?
Why? I mean, it's like saying, it's like a man who appears in court, right, because he's a pervert and he's been discovered trying to make love to his neighbour's car via the exhaust pipe or something like that.
No, it's not like that at all.
Of course it is.
No.
Of course it is. It's ridiculous.
No, very, very advanced robotics
it's
means that what you will have, it's much more like science fiction.
Yeah.
What was that show called? Was it called Humans, wasn't it? Where there was actually robots being used, but they're actually physically exactly like humans.
Yeah, but they're not. They're robots.
No, but my point is they're not made of metal and hard plastic.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, the nearest thing I can think of is Barbarella, the film that Jane Fonda was in, many, many years ago, when she and David Hemmings swapped tablets, and that was an act of love, and they got all the same emotions and all that. But
no, she used to get into the orgasmatron, didn't she?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We won't go into that. All right. But all the
okay, well, I just thought
all
I'd
the robot
stuff.
No. I'm honestly, I just can't get into it at all. You won't look.
Maybe we need to get a robot expert on to talk about.
Well, maybe we do, and then explain it to me. But I'm sorry, to me, it's ludicrous. I mean, it's the equivalent. It's the metal equivalent of a blow-up doll, isn't it?
No, it's not metal at all.
Of course it is.
No,
or
it's
plastic
not.
Then. Okay, the plastic equivalent. I mean, it's ludicrous. And,
right.
and actually, I feel quite uneasy talking about it.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't want you to feel uneasy.
No.
Why don't you tell me what you'd rather talk about then?
Well, no, it's not what I'd rather talk about. I mean, this is a huge issue because, of course, as I say, you've got your boys who spend a lot of the time on. Have they got phones? They've got their own individual phones.
Well, one of them has, the older one, but not the younger one.
Right, okay, yeah. Prince Charles issued an impassioned plea to save the well-written sentence yesterday, warning it's under mortal threat, and he's talking precisely about having to communicate with everybody around the world, because it's an international language, in 140 characters.
What's he talking about?
He's talking about the fact that when children who are growing up and their brains are expanding and they're trying to improve their vocabulary have to communicate with their mates about a subject in 140 characters.
Well, that's Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of other ways to communicate. It's not just Twitter.
That's the most common form of communicating with friends.
I would say if you're a youngster, actually, it's probably not anymore. It's probably Snapchat.
Snapchat. And I'm saying it damages your ability to speak, learn, read, and digest the English language.
What's it got to do with him?
It's got everything to do with him.
Why?
Well, because he's the Prince of Wales and he's going to be the future king.
Yeah, but he's probably about as useless at technology as you are. So, he doesn't understand the way that people communicate and doesn't understand young people anyway because he's quite old.
He was saying this at addressing a speech of Royal Mail workers.
Oh, was he?
So it's very relevant,
sure,
right?
They're very grateful.
Well, of course they are, because the Royal Mail, of course, delivers letters, and people still write letters to each other and all this kind of stuff.
I haven't written a letter for years.
He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps your greatest service is the way that the Royal Mail, by its very existence, defends the written word. In these days of texting and various social media apps.
The other day, right, he was going on about how...
well-constructed sentence is under mortal threat."
Yes. Well, not everybody had the privilege of his education, did they? Not everybody got to go to, a very highly expensive private school at somebody else's payment. But he was banging on the other day about how everybody should wear wool.
Actually, he buried a couple of jumpers in his garden.
What?
He buried a couple of jumpers in his garden.
Why?
It was a good experiment, and remember, I sent you a note saying bring one of those tatty, flea-bitten, so-called cashmere jumpers in.
You responded to a tweet that I sent out because his message to everyone was, you must wear wool because it is not horribly artificial.
That's right.
It's biodegradable.
That's right.
And I said, let them wear cashmere.
Yeah.
In a reference, of course, to Marie Antoinette.
Well, Did
you get that? But instead, you came back with just some kind of insult.
Yeah, it was, because you've come in here sometimes and said, this is my very expensive cashmere sweater.
I've got a lot of very expensive cashmere sweaters.
And they've all got holes in the elbow.
No, they haven't.
They have.
No, one of them had a hole in the elbow.
Oh, only one of them?
Yeah, one of them.
Funny you must have worn that one, several consecutive nights then, eh?
Well, it's one of my favourite jumpers.
One of my favourite jumpers. Your favourite jumper is one with the hole in the elbow.
Well, it's very comfortable.
Shows what your fashion style's all about, doesn't it?
Well, not really, no. Not really. Not really.
What a joke.
It's slightly distressed, but I find it very comfortable to wear.
Slightly distressed.
And I didn't realise I was coming into a fashion show, given the way that you dress when you come in here, looking like a tramp most of the time. If I had a hole in my jumper, I don't
go around pretending to people, look at this very expensive cashmere jumper. You probably...
Well, it is a very expensive cashmere jumper.
Which you must have had for about 12 years if you've worn holes in the elbows.
Well, when it's jumper weather...
Shabby, out of shape.
No, when it's jumper weather...
I think it's mustard-coloured, isn't it? Shabby, out of shape, mustard-coloured jumper.
No, I've never had a mustard-coloured jumper. I've got two dark blue ones. I've got a black one.
Yeah.
I've got a purple one.
Yeah.
Sort of lilac, actually. I don't wear that one very much.
Which is the one that got the hole in?
I had a camel one that might have had a hole in it. I've got a red one. I'm not sure.
So it goes on and on.
Anyway. But some of them are quite old, because my sister used to buy me a cashmere jumper for Christmas every year from Brooks Brothers in America.
Really?
And they're very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
They're like $400.
And they get holes in them.
Now, well, they do after a while.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't wear them for 10 years then, should you?
Why not?
Anyway, what Charles said, and I back him up on this one, Charles gets a lot of stick and a lot of bad press for, people call him a bit of a fruitcake because he talks to plants and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the stuff he's expounded over the years has turned out to be absolutely right.
Like what?
Well, a lot of the ecology stuff, a lot of the stuff about the environment.
Well, you don't believe in global warming or climate change, do you?
Not necessarily.
Well, he does.
Well, he does in degrees and not so. I mean, when he calls buildings carbuncles, he's absolutely right to speak out. Modern architecture sidled up against a building like, what was it? It
was a National Gallery.
National Gallery.
Because they were building an extension on it.
That's right. He's every right to speak out. Anyway, his latest great pronouncement, and I go for it, he buried two jumpers in his garden at Highgrove, okay?
Yeah. Why?
I'm about to tell you.
Right.
He put one in a big hole at one end of the garden, one in a big hole at the other.
Right.
Now, one of them was...
Normally you just put them down and play football, don't you? That's what most people do.
No.
He decides to bury them.
No, you're being idiotic.
Shows how out of
stupid
touch he is.
again. So, one of them was made from pure lamb's wool, and he buried that in hole A.
Okay.
And the other one was like a bit of nylon in it, from Marks and Spencer's or something like that.
How do you know it was from there?
Well, I don't, but I've got no problem with Marks and Spencer's jumpers. I got a lot of clothes from Marks and Spencer's, and I have no problem with
I'm very happy for you.
What he was trying to do...
They make them in your size.
Yes, of course they do. What he was trying to do was say, we're going to leave it 6 months, and then we're going to go back and dig them up. When he dug up the wool jumper, pure wool jumper, it disappeared.
Right.
Gone.
Okay.
And that's a combination of events. You know what happened? Well, first of all, it rotted because it was pure wool.
Yeah.
Secondly, it was ingrained into the fabric of the soil. But thirdly, Worms ate most of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, worms. What a feast those worms had when they found a woolen jumper there, right?
Really?
Now, in the other hole B...
Sure it was moths.
No, don't be ridiculous.
Well, I'm not being ridiculous, because some of my jumpers...
You don't have moths underground, you idiot.
You might have underground moths.
Don't be ridiculous. Anyway, in hole B, where he's got the synthetic jumper, they dig down, and guess what?
Oh, it's still there.
It was still there
Wow.
in its entirety. So it doesn't biodegrade.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think that's a useful experiment?
No, some people regard that as a good thing. Well, everybody knows that it's what's going to happen.
No, you don't.
He hasn't exactly discovered gravity, has he?
Well, he's
you put something which is man-made into a hole, and it's not biodegradable. Guess what?
Yes,
it doesn't biodegrade.
That's right.
You take something which is not man-made, is natural a fibre, and which will biodegrade, and it biodegrades.
Yeah, but he proved
He didn't
the
prove
point.
anything.
He did prove the point.
He's obviously got nothing better to do.
No,
this guy.
no, I don't agree. I think it was brilliant for him to have done that, and I'm glad he did.
I hope he never becomes king. That's all I can say.
Why?
Because he shouldn't become king.
Why?
He's too old and out of touch, and they might as well pass over him and give it to William.
See, once again, you're so naively out of touch with the way the world's going. Do you not think that Prince William, when he takes over, may live to be over 100?
He might do.
And don't you think Prince Charles, when he takes over, which could be another 10 years, he might be in his 80s?
Well, I don't want a king in his 80s.
Well, why not?
But he's too old.
No, you don't understand. What I'm saying is the generations are adding 3 or 4 years.
No, I get that.
In every decade.
I get that.
Right?
But it doesn't mean that you wait until you're 85 before you get a job, does it?
Look, you can't...
He hasn't had a job all his life.
You can't stand down as monarch.
Well, no, but he can be passed over. There must be some kind of constitutional way of doing it.
No, the Queen would never allow it.
I think she might.
Do you remember the shock when...
If she was so desperate for him to be the king, she would have abdicated by now.
She would never abdicate because of her duty. For her duty.
Well, she's getting on a bit as well, right?
She's getting on a bit, I totally agree. Over 90 now, because it's her 90th year celebrations this year.
Yeah.
But the Queen has made it clear she will never abdicate. She won't abdicate because she says, I was born into this. This is my duty.
Yeah.
I am the head of the British Constitution and the Church of England. She will never
the Commonwealth.
And the Commonwealth. She will never step down.
Yeah.
And she's the most magnificent woman in my view.
I think the Queen's fantastic.
I'm not a huge royalist, but I think the
you
duty,
are quite a big royalist.
The duty she's given to this country over the years is
look,
quite phenomenal.
I have no issue with the Queen, but I just think Prince Charles is a busybody. I don't think he's ever done anything decent in his life worth a fig.
Sounds a terrible thing to say.
I think that he might as well not be the guy that we put our hopes and fears or whatever into. And if you're going to have another monarch in the country, you should have somebody who's a bit younger.
Yeah, but if the
and
Queen...
a bit more aware of what's going on in the world.
Hang on, if the Queen died tomorrow, God forbid, are you saying you would hand the monarchy over to Prince William
I would,
now?
yes.
What, with children aged 3 and 1?
Well, how old was the Queen when she took over?
She was about 25, I think. Yeah.
But William's already older than that.
Yeah, OK, William's older than that, but I mean, he's had no training in being the monarch.
Training.
Oh, she did. She was very close to her father. Very close to her father.
He's very close to the Queen. I mean, the point is there's no point in putting some guy in who's 80 years old to run the Commonwealth or the Crown or whatever it is you want to call it.
She, because she was the daughter of the King, had directly seen the responsibilities applied to the family. William's a generation away. He's never seen directly the responsibilities that the Queen has on a daily basis.
No, that's true.
Because he's always grown up with Prince Charles, and they've been quite a lot removed from the Queen and Prince Philip.
Yeah, exactly. But Charles is now so set in his ways and old that I don't think he would be any good. But I mean, we can argue that until the cows come home.
Yeah.
We can just agree to differ.
Yes.
Tim says the Bond movie you're talking about is Octopussy, starring Sir Roger Moore from 1983.
That's the one.
And Becky says this: clowns always take me to the unhappy valley. Stephen King's Too Scary to Watch. Porky singing has a similar effect.
Well, that's a bit harsh.
She says. Ryan's got a suggestion for you: get Porky to run cold water underneath his wrists. Your veins are close to your skin here, so the water cools the blood quicker. Actually, the best place to do it is at the top of your arms.
Thank you.
Top of your arms, if you've got like a flannel.
Yeah.
Is to keep the top of your arms damp, because they're also
Why?
your wrists also. I mean, that's a pulse point.
Yeah.
But just up here as well will cool you down as well.
Why?
It's just because it's part of the body that the blood pulses through.
Really?
So if you keep
it pulses through the whole of your body.
Yeah, I know, but there are certain points at which there are pulse. I mean, you don't feel your pulse in the middle of your wrist, in the middle of your arm, do they? Feel your pulse on your wrist.
You don't feel your pulse in your shoulder.
In your shoulder, no. But I'm telling you, if you keep your shoulders cool,
never heard that one before.
You will feel much better.
I think you've just
anyway,
plucked that out of mid-air.
No, I haven't. Look at the time.
Yeah.
We're running late. We've got to talk to our next guest, who's the owner of Nook Neighbourhood Coffee in Stockport.
Excellent.
He's been using negative reviews to boost his business. we are the Two Mics. You can find us on Twitter at the Two Mics. Find us on Facebook as well. Also at Mike Parry 8 and at IROMG. A couple of quick tweets to read out before we speak to our next guest, Mr. Parry. Aza says this: Porky's looking very sleek and trim these days, like a bearded sea lion.
Yeah, what do you mean?
It's a very good thing to say. Scott says that's ridiculous from Apple, the way the headphone jack. Apple bought Beats Headphone Company, so now they can't use them in the phone. What a collection of planks. And Neil says, did Mike Parry ever review his entirely free trip to the £30,000 a week Necker Island on TripAdvisor?
Did I comment about it?
Yes.
I don't think it was around in those days, to be honest.
Did you not have to write a piece about it, though?
Yeah, I did write a piece about it, yes.
Did you? And were you entirely
in the Daily Express,
entirely favourable to it?
Well, it was a brilliant place.
Did you do it under a pseudonym?
No, I did it under my own name, and only the beautiful people ever get there. So,
I'm still looking for pictures of you water skiing.
Yeah, well,
you got any of those?
I don't think there are any around. I did it with Valerie Singleton.
Yeah, I know you said that,
yeah,
but surely somebody took pictures.
Well, they might have done, but I mean, I don't know. I don't go around taking pictures of myself doing glamorous things on islands where only the beautiful people go.
Yeah, but in those days,
I just take it for granted.
No, but if it was a PR junket, normally they would take pictures.
No, they'd like me there because I'm me. Now then, Ian here says, MG, I'm with you on the Prince Charles debate. I don't want him as king, and God forbid if... I'm reading this out.
Why?
It says, God forbid if Horseface becomes queen. That's a terrible thing to say.
Well, would she become queen? Well, that's what somebody's asked me before.
I must apologise for even mentioning that word because that's...
Well, you didn't have to read it out.
That's a horrendous insult, and I will not attach myself to anything like that, okay?
Okay, fine. Well, let's talk to Arlo Calderbank instead and talk about people who say nasty things about other people, particularly on the internet. Arlo, a very good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thank you very much indeed. Sorry about that rather long preamble there. We were sorry to keep you waiting. You're the owner of the Nook Neighbourhood Coffee Shop in Stockport, or cafe, perhaps I should say. And you've done something rather unusual because we're all suffering at the moment, aren't we, from people's opinions, if you like. Everybody's got one, and some people think their opinions are worth just as much as everybody else's. But if you're running a food selling establishment, you must get quite a lot of negative stuff.
Actually, we've only actually had 2 negative reviews since we opened the cafe in November. So to get one like this is like a bit. It took us all back a bit, and it was a bit disappointing.
So, what was the one that you got, which you then used, and what did it say?
She just basically said that the porridge was undercooked and tepid, and she just didn't enjoy the experience at all. It was the worst she'd had. So we converted it and made it into something funny on our frame outside.
And how bad was the porridge?
I personally love it. For her, on that day, she just wasn't satisfied at all with it.
Okay, now do you remember this woman as an individual customer, or did she only come to your attention after she'd left? I.e., what I'm saying is, Arlo, was she a troublesome customer anyway?
Oh, no, she wasn't troublesome at all. I do remember her because she did put across that she was unhappy with the porridge, but sort of left it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do remember her, but she wasn't troublesome at all.
Okay, and have you been in touch with her since and said, look, come back and we'll offer you a free bowl of porridge to your choice and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we've tried to contact her and get her back, but no reply. But hopefully after all this, she'll pop in and we can give her a porridge on us.
Okay, now Arlo, you run a small business. I know how so blinking difficult it is running small businesses. You do it 24 hours a day. You're dealing with suppliers. You're dealing with staff who don't turn up. You're dealing with all sorts of issues with mangy customers who give you a hard time.
Mangy?
So when something like this comes out of the blue, you might regard it as being terribly unfair in relation to the amount of effort you put in to run your business on a daily basis. And then somebody at the stroke of literally a couple of keys on a mobile phone can put you down.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If she'd have come to us and addressed the problem properly, we could have sorted something out there. But rather than that, she went away and got on her computer and got trigger happy on the keys.
But that's what happens now. That's my point, I suppose, in a way, Arlo, that everybody now, because they have an outlet for their view, sometimes the view may be unpalatable, sometimes they might have had a drink before they do it, but it's. I don't think it's a great thing, is it, that everybody's now got the access to a place like yours, or, I suppose you could always opt out of it, but like one bad review could kill you off, couldn't it?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no. It's as you say, all it could take is one bad review. Someone could see that, and that could affect the custom for the future because they could base their opinion on what they read when it's not actually fact.
Right.
So,
yeah. I wonder, Arlo, whether people like yourself have to have a special psychology towards customers, because I don't know if you read the story of the day, but I certainly did. A chap went into an establishment similar to yours. When they brought the tea to his table, they didn't give him a lemon tree tea bag. They gave him a lemon tea bag. Do you see what I mean? It wasn't lemongrass tree or whatever. He called the police.
What?
He called the police.
Why?
Yeah, he called the police, and the police turned up. They refused to deal with the case. Even our modern police force, which is sort of part police force and part sort of social enforced,
Well, what did he call the police about?
He called the police because he said that he was threatened by the staff when he complained that he had the wrong tea bag delivered to his table. So I mean,
Wow.
I mean, what I'm saying is, do you have to adopt a certain psychology towards your customers and train your staff to do the same?
Oh, no, of course, yeah. No, everybody needs to be able to... It's all about keeping a smile on your face. And, of course, the customer's not always right, but you make them... You deal with it in a way that everyone feels happy. That everyone ends up satisfied.
You do. I mean, the great British sort of service industry takes a bit of a beating sometimes because quite often the service is not as great in this country as perhaps it could be. It's a lot better than it used to be. But you're right, Arlo, even though sometimes you know the customer isn't right, you kind of have to try and pretend that they are, right?
Yeah, totally. But there's ways of remedying these things. It all comes with customer service and being able to deal with the general public. And as I say, keeping a smile on your face, that's the main thing.
That's
and
right.
we do that all the time.
Okay. Arlo, how long have you been running your business?
We opened in November.
And what were you doing before that?
I was a barista in the Trafford Centre.
You're what, sorry?
A barista.
A barista,
What's a barista?
Specialty coffee.
It's like a guy that serves you coffee in one of those coffee shops.
I see. Yeah, okay.
Have you never heard of that?
No, well, it's not a common expression in this country.
But
so you went out on your own, and how's it working out? I hope you're being successful, because I admire guys like you who go out and start your own businesses. Are you doing well?
Yeah, no, we're going from strength to strength. It's getting bigger and better as we go. We're finding new menus. We've got more staff turnover, staff working, and we're getting bigger and better.
How many tables have you got? Like, how many people can you cope with?
We've actually got about 6 tables. So it's only small. Nook by name, nook by nature.
Yeah, exactly.
And is it sort of cafe style opening hours? Is it open from morning till sort of late afternoon?
We open at 8:30 in the morning and close at 5.
Okay.
5, I see. Yeah, fine.
And what's your speciality? Would you say?
Our coffee.
Coffee. Yeah. Are you licensed, Arlo?
Sorry?
Are you licensed to serve brandy with the coffee and that sort of stuff?
We're not, I'm afraid. But
you've got no chance of seeing Porky then.
No, exactly. Don't bother inviting me.
He only goes to places where he could get a drink.
Well, no, it's not true. But I just wondered. But no, that's great. And have you rediscovered the genteel world of the morning coffee, afternoon tea, and the what do you call them? The cucumber sandwiches and all that.
We're more focused on, it's more of a pit stop for people. We get the mums coming in, and it's just a general socialising place. We haven't really gone down the afternoon tea route.
I see. Okay. Well, listen, I wish you the very best of luck with your business.
Thank you.
We've tried to counterbalance, the problems that can be heaped upon a small business like that by one grumpy customer, and we wish you well.
Yeah, absolutely
Thank you very much.
Arlo, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Arlo Calderbank there from the Nook Neighbourhood Coffee
very cowardly,
Cafe
isn't it?
in Stockport. Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We are, because we're big enough and ugly enough, we can take plenty of abuse on Twitter.
Exactly.
Where people go, your show's rubbish, want to get off the air, what are you doing, But a lot of people do it, and you think to yourself, why would you even bother? Why would you even bother hurling abuse at people on Twitter who you don't know?
No.
You don't know what they do, don't listen, whatever. No. Same with a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, unless you've had a particularly terrible time.
That's right.
I don't think you need to write about it in such a way as to pretend that it was all awful.
Well, it's funny enough, I've got development on this, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Right.
But, you and I mostly read most papers most days, if not word for word on print, we're open on tabs and all that.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite features in a newspaper on a Saturday is an inspector calls, and you get the black shadow of a guy who looks just like Foyle in Foyle's War, okay, with the trilby hat and all that, and his face is blacked out, and he goes and stays in hotels all around the country. Yeah. And of course, he does it undercover. Yeah. And well, I'm assuming he does, unless he's a Fleet Street failure and tips him off in advance and gets like a free room and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so he writes in what I have always believed an independent review. Yeah. And by the way, I don't think it's the same guy every week. I think it's a different member of staff who just goes and stays away for the weekend and like that. And he gives them star ratings out of 5. And
are they generally sort of favourable or unfavourable?
I would say, on average, that it's 3 out of 5. Right. Some go down as low as 1 or 2, and occasionally get a 5. But if you get a 5, and you're doing it not even knowing you're being tested.
Yeah.
You think about it, that is an incredibly high standard to have to keep up to at all times of day and night.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the same if you're running a restaurant.
For a professional hotel inspector, which is what he is.
And a lot of restaurants, they have, our friend who must not be named, who had a little contretemps with on our sister station, Talk Sport, who's still quite a powerful reviewer, in the sense that, a guy like him can go to a restaurant, he maintains that he doesn't tell them that he's, but of course he's quite well known because people recognise him. But he doesn't accept free food. He pays for it, blah, 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 or his company pays for it. Yeah. But he can destroy a restaurant.
Oh, of course he can.
Just because they get one thing wrong.
Of course he can.
Because an awful lot of people believe somebody like his writings, and they go and go to places that he recommends, which is mad, really.
I totally agree with you. And do you know what? There's a business started up, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute. No. It employs people to go around testing goods, services, and products, even going around tasting sausage rolls and all this kind of stuff in massive market surveys, which are happening all the time now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk some more about that coming up. Also, of course, Porkyvision is coming up very, very shortly as well. You can tweet us at the Two Mics. Got some great tweets coming up as well. Do that. Look for our Facebook page too. We are the Two Mics. We are the Two Mics. Mr. Chili Flakes has tweeted once again. He says the movie Westworld was full of rogering human-looking robots. Remember Westworld? Yul Brynner. In fact, I think they've remade it, or they've remade it into a series. You must have seen Westworld.
No, I haven't. No.
Very famous sort of movie. I'm pretty sure from the 70s.
No.
And it was basically a holiday camp, or a holiday destination for adults, and you could basically go and you could take part in what was a sort of fantasy world. So there was a section for the Wild West, where you could basically become a cowboy.
Yeah, I see.
And everybody else apart from you,
never seen it.
And a couple. It's a great film, actually.
No, never seen it.
Everyone else apart from you and your mate are robots.
Yeah, I see.
But you get into gunfights and you shoot people.
No, I haven't seen it.
And you become a hero. Then you go into the Roman kind of area.
Sounds like a ridiculous film to me. By the way, they're remaking Ben-Hur, talking about.
I know. I've seen the adverts.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really fancy. I didn't like the original Ben-Hur, to be honest.
It wasn't Yul Brynner, was it? It was the other guy.
No, it was Charlton Heston, wasn't it? Ben-Hur.
Charles Heston.
Charlton Heston.
Not
Charles
Heston. Yeah, Charlton Heston. You're right. Yeah.
Somebody was killed in the making of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he was killed when he went under the wheels of a chariot. That's right. Yeah.
Here's one from Andy. He says, "Chaps, I'm told that human-like sex worker robots already exist in Japan or China. Apparently, very realistic. #perverted."
Yes, well,
And Matt has sent a picture in saying, "Are these acceptable to go home from his badminton tournament?"
No, they're not actually.
He's wearing a pair of flip-flops.
No, flip-flops are never acceptable out in the high street. Don't send me pictures and say, "Oh, look, here's my badminton racket. Therefore, I'm a sportsman. Therefore, I can wear flip-flops." No, even more dangerous for fit people, because fit people have got more to lose when you trip over with somebody stepping on the flapping bit of your flip-flops. All people who wear flip-flops are losers.
Well, that's not very fair. Gemma says this about your giving me a hard time about my jumpers. Please tell Porky to shut up. The way he dresses, he's calling the pot calling the kettle black.
Really?
Is what she meant.
And who's that from?
That's from Gemma.
Oh, Gemma. She's an international fashion model, is she?
No, she's just somebody who doesn't think that you have any right to criticise me in terms of my attire, given the way that you dress.
Yeah, well, when I need, the sartorial expertise that can be offered from our listeners, I won't get in touch with you, Gemma. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution.
And Dickie says this: "Stop talking about the 22 trillion wealthy royals who get billions of tax off us as well. Leaves a bitter taste when they're mentioned."
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Dickie, but we do happen to live in a monarchy, so once in a while you're going to hear them being mentioned.
Yeah, I mean,
you just have to get over it, mate.
You get a vote, mate, every 5 years. You want to go and vote to abolish the monarchy? Go and find the Abolish the Monarchy Party and vote for them.
Wayne says comes with a lightning adapter. I think he's talking about Apple again. Apple have to innovate or die.
Yeah.
Bought Beats for the tech and music connections.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have to innovate or die. They just have to keep changing the way that you plug things in order to make more money.
I thought that the mobile phone world was going the other way, and that all the big companies were getting together to provide one charger, not a series of different ones.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was the plan last year.
I'm not sure if they could ever really agree to do that, though, in the end, because, I mean, funnily enough, your
design of the phone.
Your scenario, which you were talking about before, about preferring an Android phone and all that rubbish that you spouted about how people who have Android phones are more, generous and less selfish, and all of that stuff, which wasn't at all true.
It's all been borne out by fact.
Exactly. Basically, it means that they are now selling more phones than Apple are.
Who? The Androids?
The Android phones, yeah.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's Apple or Samsung. It's about it, isn't it? Are there any other phones?
No, of course, there's loads of other phones.
Like, go on, name one.
Well, Nokia make phones.
They still make phones?
Yeah, of course
I thought
they do.
Nokia had gone out of business.
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, Nokia. I'm not suggesting that you will go out of business, or you have, or I know you haven't, so I'm sorry about that. But they're not as prominent a name in the mobile phone world as they were 15 years ago, are they?
Well, no, but they're not in the sense
they
that
Finnish?
Not in the sense that when they first came out, they were one of the few companies that actually made mobile phones.
Yeah, so I don't mean are they finished as a company? Aren't they nationality Finnish?
Yeah, I knew that was what you meant.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not a specialist in mobile phones.
Okay.
What I was going to tell you, though, was, strange stories about, and you were going to tell me something as well about strange stories about sort of restaurants and
Oh, yeah, no, what I was going to say is...
But when my daughter worked in a restaurant in New York, which was quite a sort of upmarket place in the West Village.
Which one? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, I can tell you the name, but it's actually shut now. It's not there anymore.
Okay.
It wouldn't mean anything to you. But it was down at the bottom of Hudson Street, not far from Miser Keswick, funnily enough.
Okay, yeah.
And she said there was a woman that would come in there about once a week, wouldn't speak.
Yes.
But she had a card, and she handed the card every time to a waitress, and she quite liked the restaurant, obviously.
Yes.
But on the card it said, please do not give me anything with salt in it, anything with gluten in it, anything with any kind of tomato in it.
Is this woman dumb?
I don't know.
Or is it just easier to list them all on a bit of paper and hand it?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that. I wouldn't describe somebody as dumb in the first place, right? I don't think you would use that phrase.
No, I mean, did she have a speech problem?
Well, that may be the right question, but certainly dumb is not the word I would use.
Well, sorry, if somebody can't speak, aren't they...
They could be mute.
Aren't they medically registered as dumb?
No.
Oh?
No.
Well, I'm not calling her dumb as thickhead. I'm saying dumb because, inability to speak.
That. Anyway...
all right, was she of the dumb and deaf
I don't know.
No?
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, my point is that she would, and basically they would have to take, because of the fact that, because I said, well, why did you keep serving this person, who's clearly quite a difficult person to find any kind of food for that doesn't involve, she couldn't have any wheat, couldn't have any dairy, couldn't have any sugar, salt, And
she said, boring life.
Well, because she said in America they have a very much the customer is always right thing, and they didn't want to lose custom or cause bad publicity.
Yes.
They would take the card into the chef, and the chef would prepare something that she could eat,
right,
especially for her, and they would bring it out.
Right.
And she would come there only once a week, and it wouldn't make them an awful lot of money.
No.
But that's in America. That's what they do.
The sort of customer service. Yeah. Well, the one I was going to tell you about was apparently, people who want to be part-time workers or people who've just arrived in this country, or something like that. You can get a job now, literally going around testing products.
Right.
But nobody knows who you are. So you could be sitting in a pub having a pint of beer, right? And the barman's just served you it, and the boss of the pub is just, moving around talking to his customers. And you might not know there's a spy in the camp. And there's apparently thousands of these people now who go and test products. For instance, they've got a guy here. They don't name him, but he says the first job I was attracted to was the promise of £4.50 of free food and drink, plus £5 in cash if I was prepared to be a mystery shopper at the Greg's Bakery in Bishop Stortford.
Oh, right.
Bishop Stortford's in Suffolk, I think.
Yes. So what? So he would get paid £4.50 to do it, but he would also get £5.50 worth of food.
No, the other way around. £4.50 worth of free food and £5 for doing it, right?
Well, how often can you do that, then? You can't do it every day, can you?
I don't know. So it says, upon accepting it, I was sent a daunting 5-page document detailing my assignment. First, I was to visit between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on a chosen day and buy at least a regular coffee costing £1.80 and a sausage roll priced at 90p.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
My associated tasks were weird and ranging. I was to check the cleanliness of the shop, which was spotless, he says. Whether the sales...
all this for £5?
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Seriously. I know, it's ridiculous, yeah. He says, my associated tasks, like this is a mission, the £5 mission, yeah. So he says, my associated tasks were weird and wide-ranging. I checked the cleanliness of the shop. Whether sales assistants were wearing nail varnish, no idea what that was about. If specific items such as the ham and cheese baguettes and the multi-pack sausage rolls were on display in the right order, right? It was also necessary to report...
Was he doing this for the main sort of head office, do you think?
He doesn't know who he was doing it for.
Oh, right, okay.
He doesn't know who he was doing it for. You see an advert, online or something like that, a newspaper. Do you want to be a customer tester? A retail tester and all this kind of stuff. And you just reply and they say, I don't ask questions. So you don't know who's employing you. You don't know if it's the government, health standards and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, it says... Yes, it was also necessary to report if I was offered a meal deal and to detail what response I got when asking about a Greggs reward scheme that's available on a phone.
See, that sounds to me like it's Greggs who are actually using these people to find out whether the franchises are doing it right.
Yeah, could be, yeah. So it says going undercover was nerve-wracking, but in a strange way, it was stimulating and fun.
It's not exactly MI6, is it?
No, it's hardly, is it? Yeah. Testing the sausage rolls. It reminded me of my childhood playing spies with friends in the woods.
Right.
He says, but there was a moment by the sandwiches when my brain froze. His brain froze on this mission.
Just started going out, breaking out into a cold sweat.
Cold sweat, that's right.
I'll tell you everything.
Cold war, cold sweat, you know what I mean?
Right.
So he said, staring down at the crumbs on the shelves, I forgot what I was meant to be looking for from my 5-page document, you know? Cheese and onion, cheese and pickle, cheese and ham. I couldn't get it in order in my head. It was like playing the memory card game, Pelmanism, badly. Pelmanism?
No idea. Maybe he's not cut out for spy work, this guy.
Anyway, he says, back home, this is all included by way in the £5 fee, right? Back home, after leaving the store, I spent half an hour answering 44 detailed questions on the Greggs store. Yeah. Were there at least 10 different sandwiches? Were 5 of them savoury? Were 8 sweet varieties on offer? Were there indeed a very wide range of products? And I had to tick them off against the products he was going to lift on.
Unbelievable.
A mystery shopper requires an eye for critical detail and the memory of someone who could star on the TV quiz show Mastermind.
Yeah, I think you might be being slightly underpaid for that particular job. Let's talk to Matt, though, who's got something interesting to tell us about TripAdvisor and about the general public. Matt, very good evening to you.
Good evening. Great show, guys.
Thank you very much. What's your story, Matt? What do you want to tell us?
Well, I'm the marketing manager for a hotel group. I don't really want to say which one.
Okay.
But we installed a pizza oven at one of our hotels in the summer, obviously for a great outside area, something great to do. And somebody came in the other day claiming to be a YouTuber, and he was making videos as he was there.
Right.
And he ordered a pizza with no cheese, and we hold our hands up, we got that wrong. He had a bit of cheese on his pizza.
Yeah.
But instead of sending it back to us and mentioning it at any point, he didn't do that. And then he went home and went on TripAdvisor and said that we'd made a deliberate attempt to take his life. His thing said they tried to kill us.
Did he say that he couldn't eat cheese because of some medical condition?
No, well, that's the thing. In his video that he then made and put on YouTube, he said, I went to the place and I ordered a pizza with no cheese, and it came with cheese on it. They tried to kill me, you know. And then he went on to say, if I had any meaningful intolerance to cheese, I would be dead, which... Yeah, but if you get brought a pizza with cheese, you expect to send it back.
Do you have any power over what people leave? I mean, can you complain to TripAdvisor and say, basically this is incorrect, this is not fair? Can you remove it?
Yeah, well, what I did was I got the video taken off YouTube for defamation, essentially, because nobody made a conscious effort to kill him. That's just ridiculous. We made a mistake, which we would have rectified at the time, given the opportunity.
Yeah.
But the problem with TripAdvisor is, unless you can 100% prove that something's false, they'll say, look, that's somebody's experience. You just have to reply to it.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely ridiculous.
That is mad, isn't it?
I mean, first off, Matt, I didn't know that pizzas were made in this country without cheese. I thought every pizza had cheese.
Well, you can make it without cheese. You just don't put cheese on it.
You want cheese on it. You don't put cheese on it. I mean, it might not taste.
Well, what you put on?
You think they all come out of an oven just covered in cheese, right?
No, I just want to know what you put on what you put on top of a pizza base if you don't put cheese on it. What? Just a few tomatoes?
Yeah, I guess you just put.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can put anything on top. Have you never had pizza Bianco?
No. Anyway, Matt, seriously, I hope you've banned this guy for life for coming to your premises, because he's clearly either off his rocker or he's trying to really cause you mischief, either of which means that you should ban him in future, because A, he might attack another customer if he is off his rocker, and B, he'll think up some other ridiculous way of trying to criticise you if he comes again. Make sure you never see him, never let him darken your door again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other thing that's wrong with TripAdvisor as well is you can't just opt out of it. You can't just not be there, because people just recreate your page, and if you don't respond to people, it just goes unnoticed that people can say whatever they want, so you've got to have a presence.
So you've got to have a presence. Yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it? Well, Matt, listen, appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. You see, Westworld was just being advertised there. There's a new show coming up on Sky Atlantic.
What's that?
Westworld, the show, the movie I was telling you about a minute ago. With the robots.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they're making a new series about it.
Oh, okay.
And do you not listen to anything I tell you?
Yes, but I mean, I didn't recognise it the first time round, and now you say, there's an advert on it. Okay, great, so there's an advert.
Well, no,
there's millions of adverts.
Well, no, they're remaking the film into a television series, is my point.
Oh, are they? I see. Yeah, okay.
That's why
you mean like House
for
of Cards or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
I see, yeah, okay.
Except with robots.
That's that is absolutely uninteresting to me, because I didn't even know there was a film called that, so I couldn't care less.
Well, you should know, and you should go and seek it out, and you should watch it, because I think you'd enjoy it. Crocodile Shoes is a theme song to Crocodile Shoes, not Spender.
Yeah, but he played Spender in Crocodile Shoes, didn't he? Well, I think so.
I mean, you're the expert.
No,
you're
hang
the
on.
guy.
Spender was a different series, yeah.
That music can only mean one thing. It is, of course, that time of the week for Porkyvision, which has been pretty sparkling of late, I'd have to say.
It certainly
People
has.
have been full of compliments for you
Certainly
about
has.
how it stopped being, a load of old nonsense.
Well, it never was a load of
rubbish.
old nonsense, no.
And now it's actually incredibly on point.
Well, it's One of Us, right? What a fantastic show this is, right? And there's another show I'm going to review, but I've forgotten which one it is.
Is it?
I'm trying to search.
Well, you've done a bit of Victoria in the past, haven't you?
Victoria. No, something else. Anyway, I'll get around to it.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Now, the One of Us, right, this is the remote Scottish farmland, where the killer turns up, and the intrigue grows and grows and grows.
Yes.
But amazingly, there are two incredible developments in the latest episode, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but that's your problem,
the
not mine.
third episode went out last night, I think.
Third episode went out last night.
Yeah.
And what happened is that first of all we found out that the father of the that either the dead girl or the dead boy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Father.
Yeah, the one with the beard.
The one with the beard. That's right. Yeah, he's got Parkinson's.
Right. Do you know he was in in the name of the father? You know that great story about the Birmingham Six.
Yes, that's right.
Movie. You saw that one, right?
That was with Mickey. What's his name? Wasn't it?
Who?
Mickey. The mad American actor who took up professional boxing.
What? Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke.
No,
yeah.
he wasn't in that. No.
He was?
No,
I think he was.
No, it was.
Daniel
That was
a prayer
Day-Lewis.
for the dying. That was a prayer for the dying.
Yeah,
this
was Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So what's the point?
The guy who plays the father with
Yes.
the beard, he was in the name of the father as well.
So what's that got to do with the price of fish?
Well, because I'm just saying
That's
it
not
was
even
something else.
interesting. Why do you interrupt my TV
something
review?
else that he was in. I'm just
Tell me
telling you
that.
something else that he was in.
I couldn't care less.
All right.
Talking about this, right? So,
all right, he played the Irish guy that ended up marrying a Kennedy.
Right. Oh, really?
Hill, I think his name was.
Patrick Hill?
Not Patrick Hill. No,
Anyway, so he's got Parkinson's, right?
Yes.
But that's not the major surprise. The major surprise is that they've had like a handyman for 20 years. A guy who works the farm. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the handyman has come to him, and this coincides with these terrible murders of his son or his daughter, back in Edinburgh.
Right.
And, arranging the funeral and all that, and says, I want more money. And he says, what do you mean you want more money? So the handyman is aware of the intrigue that's going on at the farm.
Okay.
That they've actually been visited by the killer.
So nobody smells of rats.
Yeah, nobody yet knows why.
Right.
That they've killed the killer on their land, and that they've buried the killer in his car in a pit which was dug by an abandoned excavator on the farm.
There's an abandoned excavator as well.
Yeah.
See, my problem with this show is that there's a lot of things in it where you go, that wouldn't happen.
Anyway, so on the first approach, old Beardy says, I'll give you what I can, you know, because he doesn't want to be exposed to the police as being party to this murder.
Right.
No, you see, the reason it's called One of Us is because when the murderer was killed on his land, they all gathered round like in Agatha Christie, and Beardy actually said, one of us has done this.
Yes.
And the reason why they buried his body was because on top of losing our son and our daughter, because the two families are very close to each other, we're not going to allow the police to come and take one of us away for the murder of this brute.
But there's a couple of cracks appearing as well, though, aren't there?
Well, there's all sorts of cracks appearing. But the biggest revelation of all, is that what farm manager is really saying to Beardy is that if you don't give me more money, I'm going to tell you something that's going to ruin your life. And Beardy quietly says, my life is already ruined. My son's been murdered,
Exactly.
He says, it's going to be worse than that.
Yeah.
And then you find out that Beardy's wife has been Rogerising farm manager for many years.
No, really?
Many years.
And who's the wife? Is she's not the one that's separated. She's the other one, right?
Yeah, she's the one with the long black flowing hair.
Oh yeah, okay.
Is it? It's not the. I've forgotten the name of the actress now. It's not the Scouse girl, is it? Who's great? Claire Sweeney.
Claire Sweeney. I don't think so. No.
No, it looks a bit like her, but I don't think it is her actually. But I'm not sure the name of the actress is. But anyway, the point of the story is that he says, "I've got to meet you in a pub. I need to talk to you about these things." So she gets to the pub. She says, I can't do this anymore. And he says, why? She says, everything's happened. And she's just lost a child as well. But then she says, get me a drink. Get him a drink. The next scene, I mean, I'm telling you, it could be in a soft porn movie.
Really?
The two of them are in a bedroom somewhere, and they are energetically and physically Rogerizing.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Goodness me.
And you know, you think, wow, what another turn
it's
up
on
for the
After
book.
the Watershed, I suppose.
I suppose it is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the crazy 70-year-old son of one of the families, right, has decided to go to the cops anyway.
Right.
And sent them a cryptic note, you know, saying, I don't know what he said in his cryptic note.
You don't see the note.
You don't see the note, but you say, I overheard this conversation between the adults last night.
Okay.
And he sends it to the cops.
Right.
So the cops take this as, and they go and they dig up the car and they find a body inside.
Oh, dear.
But other strange things happen. Now,
even though they didn't spot the car when it was upside down.
Well, they
covered in
did.
a tarpaulin.
Funny enough, you said that.
Yeah.
She came back, the police, the female police investigator.
Yes.
And said to Julia, what's her name, who's the
mother of the other ones.
Mother of the other one, that's right, with the long blonde hair. You know what I'm talking about?
I know
Julia
exactly who you're talking about, yeah.
And she opens the door one morning, and just before she goes, she says, by the way, she said, what happened to the car that was here last time I was here? So, of course, all these Scottish Highlanders thought the police were too thick to realise that an upturned car covered with a tarpaulin didn't look like an upturned car.
Yeah, but it did.
But the police realised it had.
It looked like, you know, do you remember Teddy and Andy Pandy? Do you remember the Teddy and Andy Pandy?
Yes.
And he used to come, it used to always amuse me as a child, because Andy Pandy would come back from the kitchen, and Ted would be under the carpet, and there'd be a huge lump in the carpet.
Right.
And Andy Pandy would be going, where's Teddy?
Oh, he's hiding.
I can't see Teddy. I can't see him at all.
Ridiculous incursion into my TV
Well, no,
review.
because it's the same thing.
Just belittled it. Anyway, so Julia says, oh, well, actually, it was an old wreck and we've sent it away for scrap.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, the next obvious question is, which scrap yard did you send
That's
it to?
what I mean. I mean, their excuses are always rubbish, aren't they?
Absolutely. So, but anyway, there's another amazing twist in this. So the policewoman who is investigating, and she's a clever policewoman because she said to, you know, the cynical sergeant who accompanies her, been doing this job for 30 years. You know, he's an English northerner.
Right.
Been doing this job for 30 years. Believe me, nothing's happened up there. And she says, but it has happened.
Yeah.
They're very weird. Why were they walking around in the fields when we got there in their slippers? You know, they said they were out for a walk.
Yeah.
No, they weren't.
Yeah.
They were busily hiding the evidence and all this kind of stuff.
And they made some blunder about being together all morning, didn't they, when they were supposed to be in separate places.
Because that was a picture in the local paper which she spotted.
Right.
But anyway, the other amazing turn of plot is that the policewoman, who to all intents and purposes is absolutely solid gold #1 citizen, is stealing LSD tablets from the police compound where they've been confiscated.
And somebody's died or something from it.
Well, I'm just about to tell you. And selling them to drug dealers in Edinburgh because she has a severely disabled child who can only be given new hope in life by going to America for a very expensive operation, which is going to cost like, $100 grand. Yeah. So she started dealing in drugs.
Dig me.
Now, what happens is...
It's a new den of iniquity. You haven't got much time left.
Well, don't worry, because this is good.
No, I am worried.
So the dealer has then sold the drugs on to some teenagers who had a party in a flat. They left one tab of LSD behind by mistake, and a young schoolgirl, picked it up and took it, and then jumped off the balcony and did the old I can fly bit when you take LSD.
And couldn't.
And has killed herself.
Yeah.
Crashed to the ground.
Shocking.
So the cop is now going to be under investigation.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, it's a detailed one. Sorry if you haven't watched it yet, but you don't need to now, because you heard it all here first on Porkyvision.
That's it. That was Porkyvision. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to Two Mikes. Coming up in this hour, we're going to talk to John Bew, who's the author of a book called Citizen Clem.
That's right.
It's all about Clement Attlee.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating character, actually. He was, I suppose, what you might call the founder of all sorts of things in the Labour movement.
You say that.
Well, he was involved in the start of the National Health Service.
Of course he was,
Bevan, right?
Yeah.
Without him, there would have been no National Health Service.
Yeah, but I've read a bit of it, and I have to say, I think he's a deeply unimpressive man.
Really?
Clement
Attlee?
Yeah.
Really?
Deeply unimpressive.
We'll find out from John Bew precisely what he was all about. And, of course, coming up a little bit later on, we've got loads more of your tweets as well. You can tweet us at the Two Mikes, at Mike Parry, at IROMG. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Now, we've had quite a lot of interest in the old mystery shopper thing, right?
Yes.
David says this on Twitter, mystery shoppers are nothing new. We regularly had them when I was in retail in the 1980s.
Really?
And Julia says, I've been a secret shopper and eater. I got a free meal for £50 and a further £50 restaurant voucher. I certainly wouldn't do it for a fiver.
Yeah.
And Mr. Nicol says this, 15 to 20 years ago in Halifax, I used to get £25 in cash and a free pint for reviewing pubs and local government other establishments.
Really?
Yeah.
Good God. Yeah, well,
And
I didn't
Luke
even know
says-
it went on.
Well, I guess it would make sense, particularly if you are somebody like Greg's, because a
Yeah.
lot of the shops that they have are,
That's
franchised
right, yeah.
out.
Well, I mean,
And
they
if
want to
they-
check their own branches, don't they? Yeah,
exactly
sure.
right.
Sure.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's a bit like when they brought consultants into newspapers. They
Yes.
didn't ever want to ask anyone who already worked there what was going on, because they didn't trust them.
No, exactly.
They
that's
brought
right.
in these outside consultants
Yeah,
who presumably were able to find out more stuff.
No, they're all half-baked, said nothing about it.
Well, that's true.
Now, I've got one here which just illustrates the problem with Porkyvision. Hello, Porky. Fantastic Porkyvision, but why does MG interrupt so much? It is Porkyvision, not MG Vision. Can we get this straight?
Well, I
Thank
mean,
you very much.
because otherwise it will turn into a soliloquy, which sometimes
No.
is fine, but
No.
other times, it needs a bit of clarification.
Yes.
Becky says this, is Porky the mystery shopper for Wetherspoons?
Well, yeah, actually, it's funny you should say that. I was in Wetherspoons again. Oh, I tell you, I was interested in that. I was in Wetherspoons last weekend because there was no football. It was just the international, wasn't it? And so I was there down on the coast, and a huge woman, and I mean really huge.
A huge woman?
Yes.
What do you mean, like a giant?
I mean, she was very overweight, I'm afraid.
Okay.
And she was sitting on the table near to me, and she exceedingly overweight. And there are a lot of people like that around in our society now.
There are.
We just have
There's
got
no
bigger.
doubt.
So, at first I thought she was just bored, but then she seemed to slump in her chair, and the next minute, a bloke is running through the back door of the pub,
Right.
carrying a huge rucksack,
Right.
a green one.
Was he a paramedic?
He's a paramedic,
Right.
and he's arrived, like on his bike or something, So,
Well, they have a lot of those now, don't they? Paramedics on motorcycles. They get around quicker.
yeah.
Quite a good idea.
Anyway, imagine if you and I went and did an OB, an outside broadcast in, some pub or something like that. The amount of equipment you'd have to take. You'd have to take a codec and you'd have to take a mixing desk and all that kind of microphones. This guy had more equipment than that.
Really?
I'm not joking. So he had to then commandeer the table next to a woman with her three friends.
Right.
And by the way, all the three friends were all I shouldn't be laughing because I don't know the precise circumstances, but they were all sort of. Don't worry, patting her face.
Right.
Don't worry.
Did they even have a damp cloth or anything like that?
No, they didn't. But he had then wired her up for blood pressure.
Yeah.
And then they put this weird clip on the end of your finger.
Yes.
Which is supposed to indicate how much oxygen there is in your blood, right?
I thought it tested your blood pressure as well.
No, the blood pressure is the wrap around.
No, I know the
top
thing around your
arm,
upper arm. Yeah.
No, I've had it a few times,
Have
and
you?
I'm told it indicates how much oxygen there is in your blood.
Oh, okay.
So she then starts looking listless and completely disinterested in what's going on. I'm
Had
not
she
joking.
fainted or something?
She hadn't fainted at all. It's not that there was any drama that she fell over or fainted or anything. She just suddenly reported that she didn't feel well. And I wouldn't say she had. There was any indication of excessive drinking, or eating, or anything
Could have
like
been. Was
that.
it very hot in there though?
No,
Maybe?
it wasn't. No, it wasn't actually. It was Saturday, and it wasn't a bad day Saturday. Remember, it rained all day actually, didn't it? Or
Well, it was on and off. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
And it started pouring in the evening, which really annoyed me actually. 'Cause I wanted to have a fire.
Yeah. So, I see. Okay. So anyway, I can't work out what this paramedic guy's doing. He's so many tests. It was unbelievable. He had all screens in front of him. Like you see the dramatic thing in Dr. Kildare, where the screen's going.
Well, I haven't seen Dr. Kildare for about 30 years.
Neither have I. But I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Well, it's a bit more like Casualty, maybe.
Casualty. That's right. Yeah,
We'll
that's
give it
a
a
more
more
modern
sort
one.
of a current reference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and by the way. The business of the pub is just going on.
Right.
I mean, waitresses
Just more people walking around her.
stepping over the equipment, and then somebody coming to, excuse me, mate, get another pint and all that kind of stuff. And nobody's really taking notice. Anyway, after about half an hour, no, it's longer, about 3/4 of an hour, of all the friends or relatives were there, kneeling next to her, patting her face, patting her shoulder, it'll be all right, I don't know if the paramedic had given her any sort of a diagnosis or something, She then, says, what's happening next? And he says, don't worry, we'll sort it now. And then an ambulance turns up.
Right.
Fully fledged big ambulance, right? You can see it pull up at the back of the pub.
Right.
And these three guys get out and
With a stretcher.
No. They walked her to the ambulance
Did
and
they?
she got in and she was off.
Right.
I mean, it was bizarre.
Well, they must have decided it was serious enough to have a look at her in the hospital then.
She didn't look ill to me.
Right.
But I mean,
Well, she obviously wasn't very well. I mean, you're not, as you've admitted in the past, you're not a medical expert.
Well, look, I'm being very unkind because if you have cancer, you sometimes don't look ill. You know, I mean, so that's how bad a bad diagnosis can do for you and all that. But it was bizarre that. I mean, she didn't show signs of distress. She didn't, she wasn't vomiting. She didn't fall over. She didn't make any noises. She was, anything like that. She was the calmest woman in the pub.
Right.
And for 3/4 of an hour or 50 minutes, while this guy, the paramedic, was going through everything with her, testing her temperature.
Well, here's another reason not to have this ridiculous self-diagnosis thing going on. Because imagine how long that would take. If you were basically trying to do it all on an app. Because you were in a pub and you thought, well, I'm not going to call anyone.
That's right.
I'll just do it all on an app. And I'll work out what's wrong with me.
Do you know they take your temperature these days?
What, do they put it under your arm or put it in your mouth?
No, they stick it in your ear.
Do they?
They stick it in your ear.
Okay.
Unbelievable. They stuck this thing in her ear, and took a temperature and all that kind of stuff. But it was very weird and unkindly, and I stress unkindly, I thought... Is that a good use of National Health Service resources that four paramedics, eventually turn up to escort a lady out of a public house?
Yeah.
And you have to say, public houses can bring on sickness.
Yes.
They can,
true.
For all sorts of reasons,
But that's the whole point of a sort of general medical service. You can't really delineate between one thing and another. You can't go, well, we're not going to go to a pub and rescue anybody.
No, that's right,
Because you can't make those kind of judgments.
Well, I totally agree. It was just a bizarre sort of scene altogether.
But one of the strangest things now is that some of the paramedics who drive around in ambulances are not actually paramedics. They're ambulance drivers, and so they'll get to a scene, which is sometimes why they have more than one person coming, because the paramedic on the bike is a qualified paramedic.
Right.
But quite often an ambulance will turn up and there's nobody in the ambulance that can do all the things that he could do. Do you know what I mean?
I can't knock it, because when my mum fell over and broke her hip, the ambulance turned up, and we were in a field feeding the horses, you see, before Sunday lunch. So it was a little bit remote for them to find. But then my mum went in the ambulance, and they have a sign which says, "Do not disturb." Basically, we are treating a patient or something like that, so you don't go knocking on the door or anything like that. And then they have to make a basic diagnosis. But when I said to them, "Is my mum's hip broken?" they said, "We can't tell you because we haven't got X-ray eyes," which I suppose is the answer they've given a million times because people want, to know. But I knew my mum's hip was broken because she said, "I've got, no feeling down the right-hand side of my leg and all that kind of stuff."
Yeah, but again, they're probably not allowed to give you an instant diagnosis.
Exactly. But anyway, I can't complain. They gave her terrific treatment. This was down in Bournemouth. We got her to hospital, and she was in a private room that night, and she recovered very well. Yeah. And I was absolutely delighted. But it was the whole thing that. Because we're drama queens in the sense that we've been reporters all our life, and we're attracted to drama, we're attracted to things happening and all that. Yeah. The complete serenity of this group of people. Yeah. A woman says she's ill, a paramedic arrives, all this equipment's all over the place. Nobody was showing any, "Oh, golly, are you okay?" Nobody said a word. Yeah. It was a really bizarre sort of
strange
scenario. Yeah.
Strange. Yeah. Nigel says this on the front of Mystery Shoppers: £5 free bets in bookies in Chorley, a couple of pints and food in Mike Parry's favourite pub chain. Don't knock it. Hashtag secret shopper.
Yeah, that's another secret shopper.
Another secret shopper, yeah. There's obviously a lot of this going on.
Well, it must be.
I wonder how you get contacted by someone to do it, though.
I don't know. I suppose it's like when the Russians want to recruit you, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's all sort of word of mouth and all that kind of stuff.
Pete says, Porky, this problem in Wetherspoons, did it put you off your fish and chips?
Well, funny enough, no, it didn't actually. No, it was fine. Funny enough, there's another one here, right? This is another account of a what do you call it, a mystery shopper or something?
Mystery shopper, yeah.
Is it the mystery shopper? Yeah, okay, yeah. So this guy says, this is another account. My plan had been to tackle 3 mystery shops in one go, but Market Force, I think they're the people who employed him, maybe they're a company who does this sort of thing, would not allow me to take another challenge until the following day. So this time I was to be an undercover restaurant critic at the J.D. Wetherspoons pub in Bishop Stortford. Oh, yeah. So this must be from the same town, same company. As I sat down to enjoy a nice cool beer or two in pleasant surroundings, mystery shopping didn't seem such a bad job after all. But as the alcohol kicked in, with a long list of duties outstanding, including checking the state of the lavatories upstairs, I realised...
So you could do all of this stuff. I mean, you do that anyway.
I do, actually.
You do it anyway.
I do. I realised there was no way I could make a decent living from this work. I calculated that once travel and writing up time had been factored in, I was going to actually earn £13 for 2 hours' work.
Well, it's better than the guy who was only getting a £5.
That's right. Less than £14.40 I'd received from earning the national minimum wage. The £13 was also before travel and parking costs. My task at JD Wetherspoon was to choose a beer from a selection of real ales, washed down with a bottle of, and I think that's the end of the report. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, you get the general...
Yes. Well, funnily enough...
the bottled lager and a meal, all chosen from a list provided by the company employing me. They're called Market Force.
Yeah.
Veering from its list and ordering a pint of Guinness, for example, would result in my claim for reimbursement being declined.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
Yeah.
Because funnily enough, a guy the other day, I don't know if you saw it, posted a little video on Twitter.
Yes.
Because he was in a Wetherspoon somewhere near Bromsgrove.
Okay, yeah.
In the Midlands.
Bromsgrove, yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah,
It's near
just outside
Redditch.
of Birmingham, yeah. And he was basically pointing out that the place wasn't very full. But he was going past each table and you could see that people had been at the tables, but it was 3 o'clock and they'd all gone home. But then it's amazing what happens on social media. Then it started this kind of combination of people joining in.
Yeah.
And another guy sent a picture of a fight going on in another pub
Really?
in Bromsgrove and was like, oh, don't worry, it could be worse. You could be in this place. You know, where somebody was like lying on the ground and somebody was punching him, somebody on top of him punching him.
Absolutely. There's another one here, which is Leicester,
Yeah.
right? And this guy, another one, report, he was sent into a William Hill betting shop to put a bet on Leicester on a football match, right? The ominous-sounding headline, Midnight Tonight, William Hill, was actually just reminded I was to complete the task today by midnight and make sure the findings, which involved answering 24 questions, were filed before the day was out. Now, he says bookmakers can be daunting places at the best of times. And I totally agree with him.
Yeah.
You're going to a bookmaker's and you're going into a whole new world where people in there have their own expressions, their own language.
And they know it very well.
Their own behaviour.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I only ever go in there usually when there's Grand National.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Or they have their own relationship with the staff behind the counter and all that kind of stuff. Well, we went in one, didn't we? When we
in
had a show
Manchester,
in Manchester, yeah.
Yeah, we did it for the Grand National.
Grand National, that's right,
we just about made it in time.
Anyway,
we all did quite well as well that day.
Yeah, we did actually, yeah. So it says, bookmakers can be daunting places at the best of times, but my brief was to spend at least 15 minutes inside the premises to make a £2 football bet at the counter. I was also required to place a £3 bet at the self-service betting machine, right? At odds of 40 to 1, it seemed rude not to bet on Leicester City, my football club, winning the UEFA Champions League. Beating the likes of Barcelona and Juventus along the way. The woman on the counter seemed delighted to take my bet. She remained cordial even when I had to strain my neck to get a good look at her name badge, a requirement of my task. So you had to sort of, give names and all this. I then had to convince her to show me how to operate a self-service machine, to place a £3 bet on a 66-1 wager on Leicester winning their Premiership. But she did it with good grace and aplomb.
Yeah.
So, and he says his conclusions are, the demands of mystery shopping are surprisingly challenging and very time-consuming. Sadly, the rewards border on the non-existent.
Yes.
That's what he says.
Very bizarre. Well, we've entered a whole new world here that we didn't know anything about. It's always fascinating to do on this show. Yeah. We've got lots more coming up, including, of course, John Bew, who's coming up next. He's the author of Citizen Clem. He's going to tell us all about Clement Attlee and why he was a great Prime Minister. Porky doesn't think he was. I think he did pretty well. We are the two mics, of course, coming up in the next couple of days. Well, next day, actually, tomorrow, we're going to have to do a Porky quiz.
Indeed.
It struck me that since we're about to interview John Bew,
yes,
who's a professor, who's written a book called Citizen Clem about Clement Attlee, that actually what we should do is maybe do some kind of a quiz on the old sort of political front.
Well, why don't we do Prime Minister since the Second World War?
Prime Minister since the Second World War would probably be very good.
Yes.
I think that would work out well.
Yes.
We might have done something similar in the past, but it was going to be a long time ago.
Yes.
So, here's one from Jane, who says, Porky was quite right. The probe placed on the finger measures the oxygen in the blood. It is called your saturations.
Oh, right, okay. Thank you very much.
I didn't know that.
No, yeah.
Because I think they do that as well. When I went to give blood once, they stick that thing on the end of your finger. You know, they prick your thumb slightly just to give you a quick blood test to make sure your blood's okay.
Yeah.
And then they stick the old
thing on, do they?
Stick the thing on your finger as well. I thought it was something to do with blood pressure.
No, it's not. It's about oxygen in the blood, yeah.
But I guess not.
Right. Okay.
Now, SM says this series is brilliant. It's a must watch. And it's a show on the BBC Two called An Hour to Save Your Life.
An Hour to Save Your Life. Is that started yet?
I presume it has, because he's given me a link to it.
Yeah, I'll pick it up.
Maybe you should watch that. It seems to have a picture of an emergency sort of helicopter.
Oh, really?
Medical science series exploring the life or death decisions facing doctors in the first critical hour of emergency care.
Oh, okay.
You might quite like that, actually.
Yeah, I've heard something about that before, because you can either save or lose a life, can't you, in the first 60 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of people say. I mean, David Ginola, for example, our good friend from the former Spurs and Newcastle player,
yes,
who had a sort of heart issue
yes.
down in the south of France. He was playing five-a-side football.
He did, yeah.
He got airlifted by a helicopter, and what they said was if they hadn't got to him
that's right.
as quickly as they did, he might not have actually survived.
That's right. It could have been a real problem.
But he's now fine.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Glad to hear about that. Somebody here sending a picture of now this new film you've been talking about. Okay, what's it called again? The Yul Brynner one.
Oh, what, Westworld?
Yeah, somebody sent a picture of Yul Brynner's robot with my face on the front. I mean, makes it out like I'm a robot.
It's one of the great movies of the 70s. I mean, it's sort of a good bad film. I'm surprised you've never heard of it.
Yeah, well,
you should definitely try and seek it out and watch it.
I will. Okay.
Yeah,
no problem.
And Forbes suggested earlier that he wanted a TV show to be made called At Home with Mike Parry. And he said, At Home with Mike Parry is gathering momentum, brought to you today by Wetherspoons in association with Birdseye.
Yeah, well,
it's basically sort of a fly-on-the-wall documentary about you.
Yes, okay. Well, I don't mind that. That's okay. After all, some of the biggest reality shows of recent years have been At Home with the Kardashians.
Yes.
And what was the other one? At Home with the... what was
that
one? What was the Indian family called? And that wasn't like that wasn't actually a fly on the wall.
The Kumars.
Yeah.
Well, that was a situation comedy.
Oh, situation comedy. Okay,
that wasn't actually real.
Yeah. Okay.
Stephen asked if is MG the mystery shopper for Bollinger.
You?
Which is incorrect.
You?
Yeah, me.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't buy Bollinger that much.
Well, you sometimes splash out on
in fact,
champagne.
I was a bit disturbed up in the Edinburgh Festival where we only had wine. We were supposed to normally we have a bottle of Bollinger on the stage. But we only
don't
have
really
to
bother
share
me because,
wine.
of course, I don't drink champagne because, only 1/3 of my heart works and the bubbles actually interfere with the flow of blood.
Although you did have
in my
some
heart.
Bucks Fizz on the way back from Edinburgh, though.
Yeah, but that was watered down with orange, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is
it's still got the bubbles in it, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's only got half the bubbles in it because the rest of it is orange.
But what about the bubbles in lager? Doesn't that affect you to the same extent?
No, it doesn't. I don't know why, but I mean, it doesn't. The bubbles in champagne are dangerous because they contain some sort of gas which could kill me if I drank it in any quantity.
Oh, okay.
So I don't do it.
All right, fine. Anyway, it's now time to talk politics.
Excellent.
We've got John Bew here, who's the author of a book called Citizen Clem, all about Clement Attlee.
Yep.
I was saying to you earlier how, the great sort of... The great thing that happened in 45-51 was the creation of the NHS, pretty much.
Yes.
With old Nyron Bevan. But let's talk to Mr. Bew and see what he makes of it all. John, a very good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thank you very much,
John.
indeed,
Thank you for joining us.
For joining us. Now, my colleague here, Mr. Parry, says that he's read some of the parts of the book that have been written about, and he's not entirely convinced that Clement Attlee was a particularly brilliant politician. What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a lot of critics during his lifetime. A lot of people thought they were brighter than him, bigger than him, bolder than him, spoke better than him. But actually, at the end of the day, he's the guy who rose to the top. He's the guy who knocked Churchill off his perch in 1945, who led Labour to its greatest victory in the 20th century, and who, built the much of modern Britain through the NHS, right through to committing Britain to NATO.
But he doesn't get a lot of credit for that, does he? I mean, because Bevan tends to be the guy that gets mentioned as the father of the NHS, and not that many people, even within the Labour movement now, mention Clement Attlee as the kind of architect of it.
Well, he's got more fashionable again as Labour kind of looks back in its history, partly because it's having such difficulties these days. So people are looking back at Clem now.
Yeah.
When Jeremy Corbyn was running for leadership of the Labour Party, people were wearing T-shirts saying, "What would Clement do?"
Yeah.
So he's sort of back in fashion a little bit. But you're right, he's never been the kind of hero figure. He kind of had a high-pitched voice. He was small and bald, and he smoked a pipe.
Yeah.
Where you have these big figures around him, like Bevan as one, or Ernie Bevan, his foreign secretary. So he's kind of an unlikely hero.
Yeah. The thing is, though, Prof, everything you said is absolutely correct. He managed to topple Churchill. He had 6 years in power. But then, Churchill came back. So if he had the opportunity to put a huge mark on this country and literally change the way we'd been thinking for 200 years, he failed, didn't he? Because the old establishment, represented by Churchill, pushed him off his perch and came back.
Well, that's right. Churchill did come back, and the Labour Party had all sorts of difficulties thereafter. But if you're looking for a radical government that changed the face of the country, you cannot deny the achievements of Attlee's government from 45 to 51.
Sure.
Everything that we have around us today, like the NHS, as I say, the independent nuclear deterrent, controversial things like that, the special relationship with the United States.
And did he pioneer? Did he pioneer mass nationalisation of the railways, of electricity, gas, and
His government did pioneer nationalisation. It's one of the areas in which basically you can say that Attlee didn't have great success. And one of the things I say in the book is that he's pretty much economically illiterate.
Right.
And he let others sort of deal with those type of things. And, you've got to remember Britain after the Second World War is faced with huge economic difficulties.
Of course.
Having paid, for so much in blood and treasure. So it'd be very hard for any government after 45 to 51 to be popular. And even when Attlee gets beaten by Churchill, Labour still polls a huge vote of 13 million, which is one of its best in the whole of the 20th century. So if it's not success, I don't know what success looks like.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, isn't it, when you compare it to where things are now. I was reading a piece that you wrote in the New Statesman earlier in the year about Clement Attlee and this kind of faddish radicalism, and the fact that what would Clem do has suddenly now become a slogan worn by some Jeremy Corbyn supporters, as if they're trying to draw some kind of parallel. I mean, what's all that about?
It's a bit of desperation, if you ask me. First of all, Ed Miliband started with kind of claiming the Attlee mantle, and Corbyn fans have done it recently as well. And what they're trying to say is, well, people underestimated Attlee. People didn't think he was going to be any good, but actually look at it. He rose to the top. He made it all. He made it all work in the end. I think it's based on a kind of fundamental misreading of history. And above all else, Attlee is a pretty patriotic and sort of steady, moderate figure. And I don't think that claiming his mantle today can claim that.
Yeah. Now, Prof, one of the most interesting parts of your book is, and it's a thread through the book, is the mutual respect between Clem Attlee and Winston Churchill, to the extent where actually they could have been called quite close friends for nearly 40 years. Yeah,
it's a pretty incredible part of the story. So right from when Attlee was growing up, he had a kind of a nurse who also used to nurse Churchill for a little while. So they had that sort of childhood connection. Then when Attlee was a kind of a schoolboy, he'd read Churchill's stories from the Boer War, and he was really impressed and excited by him. And then above all else, in the First World War, Attlee actually fought Churchill's disastrous campaign in Gallipoli.
In the Dardanelles.
Almost 100 in the Dardanelles, it's over 100 years ago. And the old thing about that is that even though it was a disastrous campaign and many thousands of people died, Attlee actually thought it was the right thing to do. It'd just been poorly executed by the generals. So that kind of connection between them, having fought in Churchill's campaign, actually helped them through the Second World War as well, where Attlee always backed Churchill on the key strategic decisions.
I mean, it sounds in a way, sorry, Mike, to interrupt, it sounds in a way that he's, because he was more practical than, say, somebody like Jeremy Corbyn, in the sense that, he believed in being in power, he believed in actually winning elections, rather than just being, something to the members of the party that he thought he should be.
Exactly. He was often criticised by the members of the party. He was often criticised by the intellectuals outside the party. But he always had that appeal to, the average British voter. And even when the Daily Mail was sort of criticising Labour a lot in the 1930s, they couldn't really even present Attlee as something dangerous or radical, something that looked like a socialist from a different country or a communist. So the best they could do was say he had a similar shaped head to Vladimir Lenin.
Yeah, that's a bit difficult. Just going back to the Churchill connection, I think I'm right in saying, Prof, aren't I, that Churchill's political career actually came to a juddering halt because of Gallipoli, because he commissioned it, and the mutual respect was that Churchill... So many men lost their lives in that campaign, and Clement Attlee could have been one of them. Churchill was so morose at what happened, he went back and joined the army, I think, for about 8 months before he came back into politics.
He did. If you think of a whole generation of 20th century politicians who actually fought in the First World War in different capacities, you're right. Churchill went back into it. Attlee himself was carried off the battlefield 3 times in the First World War.
Amazing.
And I'd venture that would give you a pretty interesting perspective on life.
Yeah.
Make you more patient about politics, make you recognise what really matters, as I say, opposed to going to a few protest marches. I mean, Attlee lived this and fought and nearly died for his country, as did Churchill.
Indeed.
I mean, looking at the way things are at the moment with the Labour Party, I mean, depending on which side of the fence you're on, I suppose, you describe it as either a great sort of coup by the people or a great danger that the party could sort of self-destruct. I mean, what is the point, I keep asking myself, of some of the media kind of pushing this great leadership campaign contest going on? Because it's no contest, is it, between Owen Smith and Jeremy Corbyn? Corbyn's going to win it hands down. And the big question is what happens after that?
I think that's right. And I'd say, having looked at the history of the Labour Party for the 20th century, it's probably closer now to a split that it's ever been. Possibly the only one exception is in the 1980s when there was a little split.
Yeah.
I would say that the ingredients are there for a split. And if you look at Labour, Labour is a 20th century political party founded in 1900 with a very clear project. And one of the things that that Attlee achieved is actually he managed to achieve a lot of the original aims of the party, and it's kind of struggled for meaning and a reason to exist in recent years.
Yeah, I think one essential difference, Clem Attlee respected democracy and all that it brought him or took away from him, whereas I get the feeling with Mr Corbyn, they're not that bothered about winning an election. He thinks that the action on the streets directly, from the members of the party, which have swelled massively since he became leader, could be enough to change the direction of this country. Am I right or wrong in that?
I think he's thinking in terms of a movement, and you can say, there have been Corbyns in the past. There have been plenty of people in the Labour Party, in the socialist movement, who've prioritised purity over elections, prioritised the movement, and I think so. In that sense, he does stand in the tradition.
Yeah.
There's been no one who's prioritised purity who's actually seriously made a dent in the political system, who's done anything to change the government. If you had Corbyn in 1945, he wouldn't have it yet.
Prof, we sort of lost you there, I'm afraid, on that line. But thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're out of time as well. John Bew there, author of Citizen Clem. Fascinating combination of history and modern politics all wrapped into one, really, and how Jeremy Corbyn supporters are trying to use Clement Attlee as some kind of yardstick for where they should be. But mistakenly. Fascinating stuff. We've got lots more to talk about. Ian Lee's coming back, of course, up at 10 o'clock. And then tomorrow afternoon from 1 on John Holmes' radio thing, you can win meat in a game of Dead or Alive, which sounds fairly disgusting. We are the two mics. We have settled on a quiz for tomorrow, which will be Porky Quiz Night, of course. It will be on Prime Ministers since the Second World War. And you've obviously shown a fair amount of ability in that area already with that interview with Professor John Bew.
Indeed.
Interesting guy.
Very interesting
man.
So,
do you still think Clement Attlee was perhaps a man of not much substance, or do you think? I think it sounds to me like he was one of those guys that disguised his light under a bushel a little bit, and was actually probably a lot cleverer than people thought.
Well, I didn't say he wasn't a man of great substance or anything like that. I mean, obviously, people like the Prof, Professor John Bew's written a book on him, knows a lot more about it than I do, and has a huge respect for him. What I'm saying is that. How do you define prime ministers? Churchill was defined because he took us through the war. Yeah. Mrs. Thatcher was defined because, she introduced Thatcherism to this country and it completely revolutionised the country.
Yeah.
Everything that Clem Attlee nationalised, she denationalised.
And she'd be remembered, I suppose, because of the Falklands as well.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it was the Falklands. What would you remember Tony Blair for? Well, he was the only Labour Prime Minister ever to win 3 consecutive elections.
Yeah, well, again, that depends on where you stand, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't depend where you stand. It depends at what time do you want to remember him from. Because during the time he was Prime Minister, he invented and brought in New Labour along with Alistair Campbell, and that, for a decade it was massively successful. Yeah. But we look back on it now, and people look back on it with distaste.
Well, they now call him a war criminal.
And disgust in some cases. That's
blood
right.
on his hands and all of that.
And then you take Prime Ministers like Edward Heath, and what do you remember him for? Nothing. He took us into Europe.
Much. I remember the 3-day week, I think, was under him, wasn't it?
3-day week. We used to have to walk and not use our cars when I worked on the Birmingham Evening Mail and all that kind of stuff. But, he took us into Europe. I remember the ceremony when he was grinning and all that. But what else can you remember him for? Nothing. Yeah. What do you remember Jim Callaghan for? The
crisis. What crisis?
Crisis. What crisis? The the winter of discontent and all that. So Prime Ministers are lucky. What do you remember John Major for? Yeah. Nothing. Nothing.
Subsequently for doing a lot of stuff that we didn't know he was doing. Well, notably with one of his colleagues.
Well, he had an affair with the
health minister.
The health minister, Salmonella.
Salmonella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to remember
Teresa or somebody, right?
No, it wasn't Teresa. No, definitely it was Vanessa or
no, it wasn't Vanessa.
Was it May? May?
No, it wasn't.
Did her surname begin with May?
No.
What was her name? And her husband was Her husband was some kind of beer-drinking guy who said beer was more important to him than... What was the name? Come on.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I'm suffering from your disease as well.
He said I was introduced to beer a long time before I was introduced to Edwina.
Edwina Curry. There you go.
That's it.
Well, so if you remember the quote, you can remember the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope the independent quizmasters aren't listening, because you've just given away an awful lot of very good knowledge there on certain things on post-war prime ministers.
I was just saying what they're all remembered for. That's all, not remembered for, really.
Yes. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Now, we haven't got much longer to go.
No, but we have a lot of subjects to hit upon.
But we have, yes,
there are things I want to tell you about,
yeah.
you know.
Well, you've got the Paralympics starting up tonight as well. There's
Yes.
going to be the opening ceremony over in Rio.
Yes.
It doesn't look as if the Paralympics is going to be as successful, I would say, as the 2012 Paralympics. Do you remember when someone said, what they should do is hold the Paralympics in London every 4 years? Because actually London is the great place to do it.
Yes.
And it looks as though that's going to be a truism, because judging by the reaction to the kind of the ticket sales and all the rest of it over there, it looks like they'll never have as successful a sort of field day, as it were, as if they did it in London. So I think they should have just kept it here.
Well, I wish them very best of luck, because they're the bravest of the brave, these people in the Paralympics.
No Russians, of course, are there?
No Russians, because
they've all been banned.
You know, most athletes have to beat the odds to get there. Paralympians are at an added disadvantage because they have disabilities. So I think it's fantastic. Now, I'll tell you what I was going to say to you.
Yes.
Have you ever tried to work out exactly what human age your dog is? In terms of maturity, brain power, and all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting you say that, because, of course, it depends on the size of the dog.
Yeah.
But it also, the dog years are not exactly like human years.
No, I know that, yeah.
So you know when you say a dog year is but roughly 5 human years.
Yes.
It doesn't work like that.
No, but I'm talking in terms of what level of mentality does a dog have compared to a human? I mean, would you say it's a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old?
I mean, I don't think dogs get any sort of cleverer, if you like, in the way that humans do. I mean,
they don't.
You know, my 12-year-old has learned things that he didn't know when he was, say, 7.
Yes, that's right.
But a dog, you know, he knows more or less the same stuff he knew when he was, you know, a year old.
I saw a research document for the University of British Columbia in Canada. It said that they've concluded that the average intelligence level of a dog is that of a 2-year-old human child.
No, that could be right. I mean, my dog
does that add up?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what my point was, I didn't make it very well, is that you know, unlike children, they don't learn much more as they go along.
No, I agree.
You know, you can teach them tricks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but their level of maturity is not that much.
If you opened a book in front of a dog and you got the dog to stare at it for 3 minutes, it wouldn't have any more information in its head by the time it stopped staring.
No,
at
I don't think so.
No,
but I mean, for example, he likes watching things on TV.
Right.
So I mean, he'll watch something on TV.
Yes.
And I don't know whether he takes that in.
Well, he might recognise it next time it's on TV or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
The maximum, from this report, the maximum number of different words, signals or facts a dog can have in its head is 250.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you can't actually improve on that at any given time.
So what I'm saying is, if you've, saturated your dog's brain with all sorts of orders to fetch a stick, to jump into the pond and swim, to go and fetch your slippers and all that, you come to a finite level at 250.
Yeah, I would say that's about right.
And that has to include the dog's own instincts to go to and get his food, the dog's own instincts to, let you know when he needs to go outside and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's that's interesting.
Well, it is. I mean, because he's quite. I mean, on some levels, dogs are very, as you've said many times before. They're very sort of sympathetic creatures, and they can understand when people aren't feeling so well. They can kind of deduct what your mood is, which is quite clever. Because on an emotional level, I think they're more mature, perhaps they are, than on an intellectual level.
Sure.
So I would say on an emotional level, they're probably more like a 25 or a 30-year-old.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
Because, I mean, a child, generally speaking, can't always interpret
Express
your mood
itself.
as well as a dog can.
Do you think it's? I've never been in a position where I've been a single child, and I feel a bit sorry for children who are single child. Theresa May was a single child.
Yes.
She was the daughter of a vicar, wasn't she? And I've always so much enjoyed the company of my sisters.
Thatcher not a single an only child as well?
No, I don't. Yes, she might have been.
I think she was.
I never remember hearing about a brother or sister.
No,
so
I don't remember hearing of any siblings.
No, you may well have been. You may well be right. But what I'm saying is, I've so much enjoyed the company and the love and the camaraderie of my two sisters all my life that it's second nature. But I can't quite imagine having been brought up on my own. Now, apparently, according to this report that I've read, that can be an affliction for a dog to be brought up on its own if, excuse me, there aren't enough human beings around to keep it happy. Yeah. So I'm talking about the old guy who's got his one dog sitting at his feet all day in the pub and all that. Yeah. Dogs go backwards. They need either human behaviour or they need another dog to play with.
Yeah. Well, you see that, but sometimes if the dog is quite old and he's been with that one person for his entire life, I mean, they're very devoted to them, and they can actually still have a very nice life.
Yes.
Because the great thing about dogs is that they will actually adapt to almost any situation they're in.
Sure. But if I ever have a dog, if I move to Northumberland, get a cottage, on the coast, and have a dog, I think I'd have 2.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the dog is too reliant on me to stimulate him, to be his friend.
It's a lot of work, though, having 2 dogs.
Yeah, well, I maybe have to get somebody to sort of help look after them or something like that, But then they could play with each other.
Yeah.
Because, there would be occasions where I'm not going to be there. You might be doing some part-time work or something like that or whatever. So I don't know. I'm going to work it out and go and see a proper breeder before
I have
I
to
take
say,
that
I mean,
step.
I didn't see when I went to see the dog last weekend.
Yes.
And we've been up in Edinburgh, I hadn't seen him since, and then apart from seeing him for a couple of hours.
Yes.
And bringing him halfway back to Sussex.
That's right.
I hadn't really seen him for maybe 3.5 weeks.
No,
really.
because you'd been away on holiday.
And he kept coming into the living room last weekend when I was there, and just kind of wanting to be very affectionate and
to make sure you're still there.
To make sure I was still there.
You
and
then walked out on him again.
And then he wanted to go out.
Yeah,
well, no, it's not about that. It's about
yeah.
the fact that they still understand that the pack system has me at the top of the leader of the pack.
Leader of the pack.
Leader of the pack, yeah.
Brum,
and
brum,
he looks to me,
brum.
and he look, and whenever I'm in the house, he's a lot better behaved than when I'm not there.
Yes, okay.
Because he knows that he can't mess around so much.
No, he can't mess around. So he takes liberties, does he, with the other members of the family?
Well, he does rather, because he doesn't really have to do anything that they tell him.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not a badly behaved dog, is he? If he's only stealing a few
but he's
sausages
cheeky,
from the local butchers, that's
he'll,
not a problem.
He'll jump up on the couch, or he'll try and take some food out of somebody.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Anyway, needs a little bit of discipline, but he's a wonderful dog, and I shall be seeing him again hopefully tomorrow night. We are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on tomorrow, probably in the morning, as it normally does. And, of course, tomorrow is the last show we'll do for the week. On the Porky Quiz will be on the Prime Minister's, post-war Prime Ministers from Clement Attlee on, all the way up to, I guess, to Theresa May, I suppose. You have to include her as well. Now, before Ian Lee gets here, I've got another question for you on not so much superfoods, but just on, the latest trendy food.
Yeah.
Have you ever eaten seaweed?
Yeah, well, funny enough, we had a chat about this, didn't we, a bit earlier on, and I was thinking about it. You do eat seaweed, of course, in Chinese restaurants, don't you?
Well, if you like
Don't they serve seaweed? Yeah, but it's crispy seaweed.
Well, it's very crispy. It's very dark green.
Yeah.
And it almost
like
dissolves in your mouth. Do you like that?
I like it a lot.
See, that's not something I would have thought you would go for.
Oh, no, I like that a lot. And do you know what I like about it? Because if you get it in its raw form, because being down on the coast, I do see it being served up. Because I think you're going to find, that I think there's a company or two which are mass-producing seaweed, because it's a natural resource which we've ignored for centuries, literally.
Well, there's seaweed all around the coast, isn't there?
Seaweed all around the coast. Kelp.
But whether it's the kind of seaweed you can actually eat,
I'm
not sure.
This is the point. But what I like about it is it's very salty, and I like a lot of salt on my food. So I would definitely aspire to this.
Would you?
Definitely.
Well, apparently there's a report that's been given to the government's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs.
Oh, yes.
Which says that they should set up a network of seaweed farms, because there's now a growing demand. A lot of celebrity chefs are getting into it.
Yeah.
A lot of different restaurants are doing different kinds of seaweed.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I'm not sure about, whether the seaweed that you come across on the beaches of Britain is the kind that you can actually eat.
Well, I mean, if it is, I tell you what, people are going to make fortunes, because I can walk along the Solent and see, I would imagine, tons of seaweed floating around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it might not be the edible kind.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I don't know. I mean, presumably...
I presume if they're talking about setting up farms to grow it, then what they must be saying is the stuff that's generally available around the coastline is not really good enough to eat.
Here, I've just found this quote here on my information device. Marine biologist Dr. Craig Rose, managing director of the specialist firm Seaweed & Co., so that's obviously been set up to produce it, says there's a huge scope for seaweed production in this country, and it's local, natural and sustainable, but it needs to become mainstream with consumers. It's like hummus. Years ago, very few people knew what that was.
Hummus, yeah.
Now it's a big seller.
You hate that, don't you, hummus?
No, I can't stand it. It's tasteless. I think it's absolutely tasteless.
Yeah, but it's now a mass. I mean, you can buy it everywhere now.
It's like paste. I mean, I just can't. No, I really don't like hummus at all. It makes me feel pretty ill.
Well, there's something called Palmaria palmata. Otherwise known as dulse, apparently in places like Scotland.
Oh, yes.
But it only grows on the coast of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
Oh, okay.
And people use it as a snack. You can buy like little pouches of flakes.
Oh, right, okay.
Which I don't really fancy, to be honest.
No, I don't. Lava bread is seaweed based. What's lava bread? Is that not like sort of kind of a flat bread? Yeah,
I'm not sure.
No, doesn't it break up? Isn't it like a crunchy type thing?
I don't know.
Bread. Yeah, I think
I'm
it
not
is.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, I mean,
it's not doesn't taste like a crunchy, obviously.
Well, you can buy all sorts of Icelandic raw dulse, online for £5 for a very, very small amount of it.
Wow.
There's one company selling quite an expensive one, seaweed, 1 kilogram of dulse seaweed for £20.
Kilogram?
A kilogram.
That's quite a lot.
Well, it's quite a lot, but
That's
I mean,
quite a lot.
not if you're going to share it amongst a bunch of people.
No, but I mean, it's very expensive.
And that's what it looks like. It looks kind of like pasta.
Yeah, it's not even green.
No.
Well, I would want my seaweed green because I'd like my favourite vegetable is spring greens or spring cabbage.
Spring greens,
but dark green. It's got to be dark green. I hate white cabbage.
Do you?
Because it's
what
called
about red cabbage.
Well, that's a different thing. Red cabbage is like a spicy thing to go with.
It's a little bit spicier.
To go with other things. But,
yeah, but no, the actual cabbage itself isn't spicy. It's when you have it delivered on the plate.
Yeah, exactly.
It tends to be spicy.
Yeah,
with cloves and things in it.
But I like.
What about Savoy cabbage?
Yeah, not bad. But my favourite is spring greens. And sometimes I get a bag of spring greens and I chop all the core of it off, or whatever you call it. The bit at the end. And just mince up all the leaves, and it's fantastic.
Right.
I love it. Right.
I got this from Rodney, who says that we eat seaweed here in Northern Ireland. We call it dulse, which is the thing I was saying about in Scotland.
Yeah.
It's dried out on the rocks. My granddad used to suck on it to get iron.
Yeah, well, I can see all that. I can see all that. Yeah, I can see all that.
Well, I mean, if it
sounds to me like one of those natural foods in the world, and we should have been eating it for centuries. That's what I think. In fact, they probably did. They probably did eat it centuries ago. I bet the Vikings had a lot of it.
Well, they might have done.
Yeah, because like in Northumberland when they invaded there and all that, would have been washing around on the beach.
In which case, why would you need to have specially controlled farms? Why don't you just go down to the beach and pick it all up?
Good question. But as you said, it might need to be treated these days.
Might be the wrong kind of seaweed or something.
Wrong kind of seaweed and all that kind of stuff.
We've gone full circle on this show because I've now got a tweet from Ben at the 2 mics. Any news on the fine or the 3 points from your never driving a red lane? But basically, you haven't. You've had nothing, have you?
No, I was very lucky.
We asked this question at the start of the show. Yes. You may not have heard it.
Well, I did infringe upon the road laws, but only because I didn't have an alternative to do anything else. Because the motorway was so crowded because of the accident ahead that cars were stacking up. I was told by a policeman to get out of the lane I was in, but there was nowhere to go. So he threatened that I would get 3 points on my licence and a big fine, and that would be delivered to me in the post soon. And he told me that as he was driving alongside me.
And
he said,
it's quite a long time ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite a long time.
A couple of months, maybe?
Well, it's when we did the show in Rugby. It was on the way back
so
the following morning.
Then.
Yeah, July, yeah. And I was very disappointed at the time, made my views clear. And either that was the copper's way of reminding me not to do it again, or it was the cop's way of being clever and rather a nuisance, because, of course, obviously you get anxious then for a few days that you're going to receive 3 points on your licence. You don't care about the fine, but the 3 points on the licence...
Well, that's what you wanted to avoid.
Yeah, of course
also,
I do.
you might have ended up having to go and do one of those re-education classes, which you've done before.
I've done one of those, just speed classes.
Was that for speeding?
Just speeding, yeah.
But you avoided the points, though, didn't you?
I did, yeah, because, it was like, what was the... I think it was 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't actually. It was 60 miles an hour. And I was doing about 62.
Okay.
So I was very lucky. And if you get
what happened to that 10% allowance you're supposed to get? Aren't you supposed to get?
Well, in that case, I must have been doing 68. You see what I mean? So it was like I was 2 miles an hour over the limit.
Well, that's quite a big difference. That I mean, technically, it's not one of those things that they measure because they will never say to you, "We give you a kind of a leeway of 10%." No. Traditionally, they're supposed to.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we get told.
Exactly, that's what we're told. Yeah.
But I mean, we also get told that your speedometer is actually slightly inaccurate in the sense that if your speedometer tells you you're doing 40, you're actually only doing about 38.
Well, what's all that about?
I don't know why they do it, but I think...
who's told you that?
Well, car manufacturers have told me that.
Have they?
Yeah.
Why would they tell you that?
Well, because it's something...
Why would a guy from Mercedes-Benz ring you up and say, "Oh, by the way, Mr. Graham, just thought you'd like to know that when that speedometer says you're doing 40, 138."
No, he didn't ring me up to tell me, but, in the course of my work over the years, I've spoken to various people who know a lot about the way cars are made, and what they've said is that they deliberately do that so that because the tendency is to go over the speed limit. So actually, it's a way of helping you out without psychologically telling you. So if you don't know that you're actually already under it, because if you knew that, you would probably look at your speedo and go, "Oh, I could do 42, and I'm still only doing 40."
Yeah, but I mean, the problem with that is that it's an old wives' tale.
No, it isn't.
Or it's it's what I call the. What do you call it? A common misconception or something like that.
No, it's correct.
Well, you say that.
I'll tell you another one if you like.
Yeah, go on.
I'm going to help you out. You know when they do these, the constant measuring of your speed?
Yes.
When it says, that you're going through all these big cameras that are overhead.
Yeah, sorry, that's average speed limit.
Average speed limit, right. If you move lanes, they can't measure it.
No, are you sure about that?
Yep, I am.
Well, funny you should say that, because there's one...
Because I've definitely, been guilty of going into one of those areas a bit too quickly.
Yeah.
And then I've slowed down.
Yeah.
But not enough to make it average out at less than what it's supposed to be.
So you changed lane?
And I've changed lanes and I've never ever had a ticket.
Well, I'll tell you where that happens. There's, on the A3 from the coast up to Stockbroker Belt, right, there is a tunnel. and I've can't for the life of me think what it's called.
Is that near the Hog's Back?
No, it's near the Devil's Punch Bowl.
The Devil's Punch Bowl,
and it goes right under a village, and they've been.
Oh, this is the new tunnel.
Yeah, the new tunnel. They've been threatening to build it for 20 years. They've eventually gone and built it. Oh, it's great. Now that has average speed limit. And it has 3 cameras for 3 lanes. You're absolutely right there. But what is interesting is that most of the time you're allowed to do 70 through the tunnel, the same speed as the road.
Yeah.
However, one day when I approached the tunnel, blithely thinking it's 70, and I entered past the first camera at 67, right, and then noticed, to my horror, they'd reduced the speed to 40.
Oh, dear.
Because of, there'd been some problem with the weather or an accident or something like that. I then immediately had to work out in my head, I've got to go at 35 miles an hour now. Yeah. And all the traffic behind me, was literally flashing its light, and I just refused to go any faster.
Yeah. For you.
See, if you'd changed lanes, you'd have been fine.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, you see.
Well, I'm telling you.
And what's more, the changing lanes wouldn't do any good because I was already in the slow lane, and then the fast lane, they're going even faster. Yeah, so I'd have got more grief.
No, but the point is you wouldn't have got a ticket.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, did I?
Well, now you do.
So I steadfastly refused to go more than 30 miles an hour because I had to average out my speed to 40 by the time I got to the lights at the other end.
That's very clever. That's actually very